Okay, all right, good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Okay, first item is the approval of the minutes from our last regular meeting, which was October 16th. Does anybody have any changes or updates? Okay, good.
Everything else good?
The only, and I noticed you put your name as a submitter, which makes sense.
As a secretary.
Yes, which
Right,
makes sense. I thought maybe what we should add then is a line that says prepared by, just to clarify that you didn't write them.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, because at the end of the day, it's like putting your name on an article that somebody else, I mean, I believe that's convention,
Okay,
I think.
okay.
Yeah,
so
last month, Tamara, her name was on there and
I know,
yours
I
was
didn't
not.
catch it, I didn't catch it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fine if Tamara's the secretary, I'm fine with Tamara being secretary.
No,
I
she
mean, I
can't.
didn't
It has
want
to
that
be one
extra
of
job.
us. No, I just
No,
didn't know whether
I
you
just-
wanted a record that she, because you didn't
No,
prepare
it's
it.
like, if it goes under my name, I'll like,
You're fine. Okay, okay. I just wanted to be sure about that, whether you didn't want to.
and I wasn't sure if the other, which was that, is that even a meeting, because that was more,
No, that was a meeting.
yeah.
That was an officially meeting, it is of you because I prepared them and you weren't
Yeah.
at the meeting, so you, and the meeting was not recorded, so
Yeah.
you truly have nothing to go on, so, you know, I'm like, yeah, probably don't, so maybe in that,
Maybe an acting secretary? I think we used to do that sometimes at RTM. Like when someone, the secretary wasn't there and somebody else kept the minutes, I think.
I think, or is it your job to just make sure there are minutes?
I can check with town clerk or
Okay.
like Robert's rules of order.
Okay, just check, so whether we wanna add a notation that, with Ed's name, just because he's acknowledging as the secretary, yes, there are minutes for this meeting, as opposed to that I submitted them because I wrote. Okay, but we need to go back, because we realize we flipped on our technical issue, so, any, proposed changes or corrections to the October 26th minutes? Seeing none, motion to approve? Ed, second? Mary Louise, all in favor? Everybody? Okay, move on, okay. Next, we have the minutes from our special meeting, which was the parks tour. Suzanne, any questions, comments, corrections, changes, typos?
Kudos, they were very detailed and
Thank you.
I think going forward, a good, synopsis and historical, analysis of what we discussed. So when we go back next year, we'll have.
We'll have that, thank you. Yeah, and I checked, the first year we did this, I checked with Kate Bush, who was then our town administrator. I said, well, how do we do this when we're moving around? And she
Yeah.
said, no, you adjourn, you know, whatever.
Okay.
And we kind of stop and start. That's how we do it. Okay, all right then, so if there's no changes to that, I'll take a motion to approve these. Amy? Cindy second, all in favor?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Okay, next we have the Fall Parks Tour assessment results. Sideways, which Terry, did a great job. He really did a great job. I skipped public comment, thank you very much. Because when picked up sided, that's the problem.
I'll leave
Is
it
there
there.
any public comment? Thank you. Any public comment? No? Okay, then we'll move on. Okay, I'll leave that there so I can do that. Okay, so Terry did a great job pulling this all together. I have thanked him profusely and frequently, and the amount of work he did. He was very sorry he couldn't be here tonight, but he's at his double daughter's field hockey banquet. He's
Can't miss this.
two of his daughter in the program, the canvases, and his older daughter's senior co-captain, and making a speech, so. He's where he absolutely should be, so I will, he and I met over the weekend to go through this, then we got some additional input, so we have pulled this together. The first page really just lays out, you know, what we're doing and why we're doing it, and as he noticed, what Terry worked to do was take all of the comments, the voting, whatever, and or draw some some conclusions, based on what he heard and interpreted from the group on this. So if you flip to,
Can you put it up on the screen? Or is there, because I don't have Or do we
I don't have it. I
Sorry.
can give you
You
mine.
could share with me, but I can't, I'm not pulling it up. Who sent us, it's not under
Tamara.
Tamara, it's not
If-
coming up.
It's a link.
You have
Could
to
we-
have
You
the
click
link.
on the link.
Could we plan to use the screen?
In the body of the email.
Yeah, it's a link.
we could, I don't have a laptop, so
Oh,
Jen would
right,
have
of
to.
course.
I mean, not tonight, but
Yeah.
like for,
Agenda
I think it's
item. Yeah, I'll
helpful
keep
to
that in
just
mind.
have it
Yep.
up there.
Here, we
because
can
then-
share.
Yep,
No, but like the audience can't see it, like it's,
yep. Did you find it?
I think so.
Because otherwise you have to, it's the link to the website, I
I've
think.
got it.
Mhm.
Do you want to borrow it? Okay.
oh, you,
Yeah. Never has a piece of paper.
Okay. Oh, the first part is the assessment average parks rating. So we took all of the input, and you'll see it breaks it down both by park and by the area, whether it's, condition of the courts, athletic fields, playground, landscaped areas, building and gazebos, natural areas, tree canopy, signage, and accessibility. And then, for those of you who were with us doing this in prior years, we had a 1 through 5 scale.
Yeah.
And it was actually Terry who made what I thought was a really good recommendation to just squeeze that down to 3. He thought it was a little broader than we needed, and I think 5 we had, significantly exceeds, and we were like, yeah, we're probably ever gonna get there. And then from there, what you will see is highlighted is areas that fell below 2.5 on average. So 3 is basically, everyth's good. 2 is, there's some areas that we think need improvement, and then, a 1 being, this is really not good. This needs our attention. So we settled on, if the average was below 2.5, that we would at least flag it. And I'll just do a quick run through for the audience, and then we can discuss this page. There's questions. But Baker, all in all, looked pretty good. The 2 areas that fell below were the playground and the accessibility. Now, I think that may have depended how people rated it, because I know, for instance, when I input on Baker, I rated it higher, but made a footnote saying, this assumes the project, the
Yeah,
planned
right.
project is done, because it's been funded and the equipment's been ordered where it's possible. Some of you rated as it currently is. So these are these funny little nuances, like the devil's in the detail when you do these things. And, Terry's already, which the good news is, he says, when I do this next year, I'm like, yay. He's like, I've already got ideas how to even tighten this up and make it better. And it's those little things about, if there's a planned and funded, we probably should say, project, then little bits like that. So absent, unless y'all tell me differently, unless there's something else about Baker, other than the playground and the accessibility, which we identified, I think it says Baker's in pretty good
Right.
shape. Now, there were definitely individual comments, you all saw in the details note, so there's always things that, some comments about the walking trails, maybe need some chipping or better signage or whatever. But it doesn't appear that anybody really came out with anything that they're like, whoa, this is, really not looking like we want it to look. Any comments on Baker, or I'll just move along unless, otherwise we're gonna be here a very long time. Cherry definitely had more areas in the yellow. Athletic fields, which are probably because of the fact that the organics are not doing what we had hoped, and the field is in pretty poor shape. Landscaped areas, natural areas, and signage. So again, these are areas, as we're talking about, the budget, we need to be thinking about what we want to see
We,
happen there.
at Sherry, we did discuss putting the new sign in the front and moving the old one to the back somewhere, right?
Yeah.
When is that gonna happen?
I don't know that it is. The big brass sign from the playground,
You know,
Oh.
we're gonna put a new one.
The new signs have been installed, I just went up there
Oh,
to
yeah.
look at it today.
Oh, great, okay.
We still have, the plaque is in our office,
Okay.
still have to figure that one out.
Oh, okay.
Of what we'll do with that, but we wanted to we brought it in the office to make sure it stayed safe. But yeah, the one in the front has been done when you first walk up, and then also if you come in, say from the gravel lot,
Mhm.
walking towards the playground, past, where we have the chain
Yep.
by the restrooms, so there's a sign there as well.
Oh,
And then
okay.
if
That's
you
it.
notice on the back, it says, "Thank you for playing. Come again, see you again soon," or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
On the tour last year,
Yeah.
was this similar kind of rating thing done? Like,
Yes.
can you, generally speaking, not park by park, but can you say like how the ratings look this year compared to last year?
I would say quite similar. I would say quite similar. The scale was different, and that's why I thought it was a great suggestion, Terry, since, and then you go back and forth, but he said, yeah, but you still know something's, it's good, it's, or it's awful, so. But I say generally the same. Now, what's interesting to me is when we talk about the budget, in fact, we don't see, we got some good things done, but I don't feel like we see tons of movement. But especially when you look at the capital budget and how little we were allocated for this fiscal year, like almost nothing, it's not surprising that some of these things haven't really moved, to be honest. Now Cherry, the playground's done, but that was ARPA money. The athletic fields, that I think is a little bit because of yet another year with the organic treatments we're really seeing is not resulting in a quality playing field, so we're gonna have to,
Sorry, so does that mean we go back to the ones,
we're gonna have to talk about that. Yeah, and how to handle that. So we'll think about that. I don't wanna get too off track, but I did have a conversation with Tony Campanella, who works in Public Works, who is, trained and very well educated on all kinds of lawn care, maintenance, like he's a training golf course maintainer, whatever, but he knows a lot about this, and he made a brief comment to me that the industry has progressed with, concerns about, herbicides and pesticides and ever, that they've come up with more and more applications that are effective but less and less potentially harmful. So whether we can get him to come talk to us at one point, am I allowed to ask for a speaker from another department?
I don't know, I'd have to.
Does the town have an organic policy, or this is something like,
We don't have an organic policy per se.
so like at the schools and stuff, we're not doing this?
I can't speak to what's
There-
happening at the schools.
At the school, with schools, there are certain things that you're allowed to do depending on the age of the kids at the school, so it depends on what you're allowed to do. And that's a statewide thing.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the town, but it's a
Yeah.
state.
But I believe we tried organic at Casey and then at Highland, which is not a park, so that would not have been our decision.
No, this is
No?
this is the
This is
only
the only one,
place.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we tried it at Highland too, we were gonna have that be organic. We don't have responsibility for it, but that's what we recommended. That didn't happen?
I don't think so. I can double check.
I have that in my head too, but again, we don't, that's
So
not our,
we
I
have
can
two,
double-
we have
it's
two
not our
fields
purview.
that were.
it's not our purview. So, Okay.
Can I just mention one thing?
Yes.
I meant to mention when you were on Tobacco. We're on schedule, right? Everything's ready to go for the spring and
Yes.
Yes.
everything's,
Yeah,
nothing's
I'll touch
changed.
on that, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Landscape, so natural areas, I'm interpreting, could please every jump in, that has to do, that we have more work to do on the invasives. We're making progress, but there's still,
There's much more to do.
still in fact, much more to do. And then signage, we'll see kind of across a number of the parks got picked up. Having been doing some work on Great Island now with the signage and doing some, learning some things about what's required by KERMA, which is the town's insurance carrier, et cetera, and their requirements for signage. It's probably time we do an assessment of our overall signage, and it's also always a balance between providing the appropriate warnings and notices to protect the community, with not having sign clutter, also kind of the look and the feel of the signs, et cetera. So I think it's something, certainly to address that, and also wayfinding. I know certainly in some of my exploration, especially with trails covered by leaves, I found the wayfinding very lacking. i.e. I got lost. And ended up much further down Middlesex Road than I had intended.
Just testing your orienteering skills.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Thank God for the compass on my watch. Okay, so Cherry, any questions or comments, people, especially if people want to highlight in terms of, and we'll be talking about the budget, but yes.
Well, I guess, I don't know if you mean on Cherry or on the priorities, but I guess I was struck by the fact that nobody mentioned Pear Tree Point as a priority. Or did I miss it? Not, maybe say nobody mentioned, but it was sort of, okay, more efficient use of parks, parking at Cherry, and I'm, and it's just, I'm not sure, I mean, maybe we weren't kind of thinking about it, and that could include me too, I'm not saying, I was just, it's interesting.
I know I did.
It was noted on page 5. It is.
Well, it says
Yeah.
execute Weed Beach Short Lane project. I think I know what I put was execute
Pear Tree.
both, basically said both, and I
Okay.
put them in one line.
Okay, so maybe that's what I mean.
Because I think I wrote it more like
No,
execute
that makes sense.
approved and permitted
Yeah.
projects or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that, but,
And in that other detailed
Yeah, then I think
notes,
it's,
it said it
it's
a lot
it's
more in
both.
there.
Yeah.
It came up
Yeah.
there a lot.
Could be because it was mentioned in every category. I mean, it did say
Yeah.
very first line item,
Yeah.
lowest overall average feedback score.
Right.
So has a lot of items involved, yeah.
you are right, Ed, on this, the top through this, but I think I think I buzzed by that, because I think I just saw exit, and I was just like, oh, I know I put down both,
And it makes
so-
sense that
yeah.
we're all looking
Oh.
at it and saying, it's both.
Anything else on Cherry? Any questions? On McGuan, everything looked pretty good. The other thing is the number of responses, that varied, of course, because some parks were
Sure.
visited individually, and then I know we had 4 submissions from RTM members, but it's possible they didn't get to all of the parks, so that's why we'll see some variation. Yeah, Pear Tree's pretty,
Also, because
Yellow.
some of the parks don't have all the same
Yeah.
yes,
uh, attributes.
yes, that's correct as well. Pear Tree, as we see, is pretty much all in yellow, really with the exception of the landscaped areas, and that's where we have put some investment in the last couple of years for the landscaping, both in front of the building and along the road, and installing the irrigation systems, which is, kept it looking good. I know we need a little touch-up because, Sandy mentioned that somebody rode over some of the plantings. They drove I guess the gate must have been locked or something, so they just drove up and over our plantings.
Yeah, Pear Tree got the overall lowest score, it looks like, across all the parks,
Yes,
but it's also something that we know is being addressed, right?
yes, we hope is being addressed. Let's go on that. Well, and we'll update where we are on that later. Weed, mixed scores, playground, good, landscaped areas was lower, natural areas was lower, accessibility, was rated lower. And that was a tricky one, I know, and I was actually pushing the radio buttons. It was a bit tricky because parts of the park are great, and then part of it is awful. Specific comments on weed, the numbers or questions?
Is this the time to, are we allowed to, no, okay, sorry.
Woodland looked pretty good except for signage and accessibility, but you would expect that as a nature preserve. Diller looked good, Freight looked good, although Mary Louise is suggesting that maybe we need a sign that actually says Freight Park.
That's a good idea. That talks about why it's been named Freight Park. Who is this person?
Isn't there a plaque there?
There is.
There's a
There's
plaque
on the rock.
On the rock.
But
Well, but it's like, what's the background? I mean, there's a history there.
That goes
And maybe
under
a bench.
signage discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would go under the signage discussion. Selleck's rated well, nothing jumped out. Stony Brook, it was really signage and accessibility, the same as, Woodland. Signage could be better, and also, that again is a nature preserve. Accessibility, we would expect to be lower. Tilly, the lower area was natural areas. I'm guessing that had to do with our tree discussion and the fact that Sandy pointed out that quite a few trees have naturally fallen down. And our feeling that we probably should have a
Replacing
replacement.
them, yeah.
Have a replacement for them, so, and, we'll talk about that when we go through the budget numbers. And
We-
then,
No, I'll wait for that.
and then town hall. I don't know, I don't know natural areas, I can't really, I guess some of you guys who did town hall, because that was,
Well, it's
7
the
people
fields.
rated it.
It's the fields.
Is it the fields?
I think it's the
What's
fields.
it, it's
It's
natural
natural
areas was what was rated low, I didn't rate that one, so I can't, so I don't know if those of you who did, 7 people rated it can
Yeah, I didn't either.
speak to that.
Yeah, I think when people look at town hall landscape areas, look at the circle up on top, which is very nicely done. The hill itself is not, but,
And that is not us, just so you,
that's not,
we don't maintain.
no, right,
No.
which is great.
But we'll take the compliments, but the
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
stuff, that's somebody else.
You have equipment out for wood,
Baker, Diller, town hall, all right, what people wrote is increased tree canopy. I don't, that's far back, dogs use the playing field and leave their package behind. More signage might be helpful, or no dogs anywhere. Repaint dugout at some point. When is this scheduled? Front fields need better flood mitigation.
Which, if I could just explain, it's designed to flood.
Yeah.
That's the point of that, is it's so that floods, so the houses are not flooded. So it's intentionally created that way. So just, we're not gonna
We're not going to
make
change
that to not flood.
And then fence on baseball field needs to be repaired over the winter before spring season.
And I'm assuming that means the backstop,
I'm assuming. So really, it was just, there was a comment about increasing the tree canopy, but
which I'm not sure I understand, because most of that is the fields, so you're not gonna put trees in the athletic fields, so that's, but
I think when we
I don't know who-
when we toured that, maybe it was last year, and when you're looking down at the field, the comment was you could use more trees up above there in that area. Probably not explaining it too
You mean a
well.
long stream kind of looking down from the town hall to the post
Yeah,
road?
with the town hall behind you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
that
they did
was-
put in some evergreens, were put in, right, along the back there.
well, I don't know from
About
comparison.
about 2 years ago, they planted some new evergreens, but some taller ones have fallen down and not been replaced.
Okay,
And I think people commented that it'd be nice to have some shade trees up in that area.
so like along the edges,
Correct.
okay. That makes a little more sense.
okay, so moving on to the identified most important priorities. Each respondent was asked to list what they thought the top 3 priorities for this year should be, so this compiles the number of, people who brought the ones on one, and one of the top ones was the more efficient use of parks. And as Terry and I talked about that and looked at the comments, we interpreted that to be more programming, scheduling, making sure that, you don't have too high an inflow at a given time, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I'd love
I think that's right on
all
the
your
scheduling.
feedback
Yeah.
on,
Can we move stuff off Cherry that's on the fields now? Like,
There really isn't anywhere for us to
Yeah,
put it,
okay.
which is part of the problem.
like the soccer stuff, there's no place, we can't put it at Highland.
No, and we're limited as to what can go at Highland because of the special permit. So it's very restrictive as to what can be done there and when it can be done and the amount of usage there. So, and then on top of that, we have all the schools that are under construction.
Mhm.
So they're coming to us, we have the youth groups coming to us needing more space. So it's gonna be even more difficult in the next couple of years while the construction's going on.
Yeah. And the elementary schools are through fall of '26. That's what we would, but those of us who hear the construction every day, it's,
Jen, do you know if the special permit on Highlands is 10 or 20 years?
I don't know, and we had talked about that the other day, and I pulled it out, I haven't had a chance to
I
go
actually
and
thought it
look
was
through.
30.
I thought it was 32.
Yeah.
30?
Yeah. I think we're in on, I think we've gone into,
That is crazy.
Well, does that
he
mean
blocked it out.
if really there isn't space to put these other things, is that really like all there is to talk about on this number one priority? Because there isn't really anything else we could do? I mean, I realize we're kind of interpreting, like, hey,
Yeah.
we think it could mean scheduling,
well,
but
but
there isn't really anything else.
except for our colleagues who aren't here tonight, the majority of us who did this are in the room, so.
Yeah, but that's, no, but I guess what I'm saying is like, effectively, we all said we should make the parks more efficient, and then we're basically saying, but we can't.
Or is it a temporary inefficiency and things will get better once the schools have completed their construction? Or are we just witnessing a temporary squeeze right now?
I don't think it's just a temporary squeeze,
Mhm.
but again, I think we need to look at it more. I know we have tried to start pulling a few things off of Cherry and moving them to other places where we can. I think it does require, that is something that we do need to look at. I wouldn't say just, nope, we can't do
Yeah,
anything
okay.
about it. I do think, that's something that we as a department need to focus on and look at and see.
Yeah.
Are there places that we can make some changes?
I agree, I do think there's, we can distribute some activities into the other parks, and pull it off of Cherry Lawn.
So, I mean, again, we'll take a look at everything that we've got and the different locations that are available and see what we can do, but.
I think during our parks tour, wasn't there a discussion of someone actually doing a field inventory?
Patty Baumgartner mentioned that she
So,
and Jen
Jen
Schwartz are working on that,
So that might be interesting to follow up on and include what is going to be included in this. So don't include current, but at the end of the school constructions, maybe what fields there will be.
Because I think they were looking at all open, like recreational and open space, so
Okay.
it should give us a good listing
Yeah.
of inventory.
Do you think they were including the parks and recreation programs in addition to the town's sports?
I don't know if they were looking at the usage, I think they were just looking at an inventory of the facilities.
Mhm.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them and I guess I think it would be important for us to generally understand what they're
Definition
working on,
of it.
why they're working on it, and
And then we could
What the end
perhaps
game of that is.
overlay what goes on, what programs go on there currently, just to get a sense of maybe there's a bottleneck at Cherry and that it
Yeah, that's
might
right.
be able to give us a better picture of what's going on in terms of usage and, yeah.
And then what about like the parking one, like that one, okay, that seems like we don't have to interpret where it's clear. Like, but like how do we go about saying, yeah, we want to add more parking? Like, as a commission, right? We're gonna make a recommendation. If we would, be putting it in
What we
the
would-
budget and
what
then
we'd
we.
like to get and what we asked for last year and the Board of Finance cut it, but we will put in again, and John made reference to maybe we should make an off-cycle budget request, how likely that would be to get approved or not, can't say.
But that's
But it
different.
would be for, no, it would be, and I,
And
It's a
I
topic.
can address that under the
Yeah.
capital, it's.
No, but I guess what I meant, I was more of as a process question. If we said, I don't know how many parking spots are at Cherry Lane, let's say it's 100. And if we said, we think it should be 150, what does that process look like to turn it into,
Well, but the process
Parking
is,
study.
we need to do the study, so,
sorry,
It-
why do we need to do the study?
because that's what it's all about. So as part of, and that, I don't know, should we
sorry.
be talking about this now or under capital? That's my only well.
sorry, just
So-
to challenge you on that, like, this is by law, we have to do
No,
this study, or?
No, but we don't just sit there and say, we need 50 more parking spaces, right? So there has to be, so as part of what we're looking at from the traffic, it's more than a traffic study, we're looking at,
We're proposing.
we were talking about, what we were proposing is like a circulation, traffic / parking study and plan, right? So it will look at the functions that are happening there. There are like requirements of, or suggestions of how many parking spaces each type of activity should have. So they'll look at the parking, they'll look at pedestrian access and pathways, we talked about that and trying to improve that and circulation, as well as traffic circulation and flow. So you kind of have to do it all together as one piece versus just doing one off. And then from that, they will also give us like a kind of a conceptual layout and design of how to accommodate those different pieces.
I guess what
Jen,
we're
doesn't it make sense to do, actually, before you figure out the traffic and do all that stuff, it probably makes sense to look at the usage and understand that.
Well, we know what the
In
usage is,
advance.
we know the playgrounds, we have a bunch of stuff for, the fields, we know the fields. We know the nature center, like we can get that information. We have some,
Yeah,
Rough information
and
on-
gather it all together, so we have a real
right, and I mean, all of that
understanding
gets,
of all of that.
all of that gets
Yeah.
put into.
But that's what a traffic
That's what the
engineer would
study,
do.
that's,
In
it all gets put into that, that's how they
The
figure
use-
all of that.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
traffic study isn't, okay, this would just be faster and more efficient if we did
No.
it this way.
Mm-mm.
It's, what's the usage, what's the timing of the
Yeah,
usage,
correct.
what's the.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
So it's a,
It will be looking at everything, so
so
and
it's like
then.
traffic and usage.
It's traffic,
Yes.
it's traffic usage circulation, right? Because if things are happening throughout the day and there's no bottleneck, it's not so much of an issue if things happen at the same time. So they would be doing, not just traffic counts, but looking at stuff, and we talked about doing it at a couple different times of the year, right? So like, there's springtime where there's
Right.
certain things, and then there's summertime when there's other things that are going on that are kind of peak. Different hours throughout the day, different days that they would come and they would be checking and doing different counts and things like that.
Is there anything that we could be doing sooner? Just because, I mean, like, I was there the other day, and I see people are parking on the grass, you know, right? And so it's like, there isn't enough parking, and so people are kind of making their own spaces.
Right.
And so would we be better off if we found a area that we could basically say, no, we don't want you parking on this grass, we want you parking on this grass, and basically create some sort of supplemental temporary parking until the stuff, because I just think like, otherwise we're gonna have people continuing to just kind of do whatever it is they want, which is suboptimal. If we could say, actually, we could actually take some space over here and say that's what we're gonna do. Would that be?
That's why I think we
That's
really
what
need
it
to.
Figuring out where.
Yeah, that's the thing, I think, we'll do this whole study, and it's gonna be more about shifting the times of certain activities at the park, because there really isn't any space to put additional parking out there.
That's not
Right?
true.
No,
There
there's
is.
some,
There is?
there's,
Yeah,
yeah, there's space.
There is, but there's trade-offs.
Right.
Well, where would you put it? You got a soccer field?
You got the whole
But the
off-leash.
issue is,
Dog
got your whole
the issue is,
off-leash area.
I think the issue is usage at Cherry Lawn Park vis-a-vis other places, because there might be, like Wheat Beach has got space, so maybe we take some of the intensity off of Cherry Lawn and put it onto Wheat Beach,
We have a
and
lot-
that'll help.
Yeah, but we do have like a lot of apartments coming, like this,
Right.
I don't know, if in terms
We have a
of
lot, so we have to.
data, the school
Right.
board uses a demographer, they do these forecasts, like
Right.
that's gonna increase
Right.
demand beyond what we have now.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think we have to look at the parks as a group and figure out the efficiencies of the parks
Right.
and see if we can take some of the pressure off of Cherry Lawn and put it into Wheat Beach or put it into some of these other places and then figure it out from there.
But we know that the playground is staying, the gardens are staying, the nature center is staying, pickleball
Baseball's
is staying,
staying.
tennis is staying,
Gardens,
baseball is
Baseball.
staying,
dog park.
dog park is staying, so,
It's really just the soccer that's left.
And you can't really move
But
that
even when
'cause
there's
we
not
need-
soccer, I've been over there enough, and maybe when you saw people on the grass, there wasn't any soccer. My husband's there almost
Soccer
every
Yeah,
day.
no, I think it was
Yeah.
baseball
It's
or
a disaster.
something, whatever.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
It wasn't pickleball because there was nobody there. I went
Right.
to try and play, so.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, it's times when it's not soccer going on, and there's still people up on the grass. So we really do need to
It's
look at
really
the
the
flow.
playground. The playground is really, I mean, it's busy anyway, but the
Yeah, but
playground
anyway,
is really
so-
making a difference.
It's gonna get worse.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not isolated, it's all related, and there are a lot of other things going on. But I think because Cherry Lawn is probably the most utilized, high profile, it warrants, I think we can all be in agreement, the priority park to get the traffic study done.
Totally agree with the study.
No,
I
we
ju-
had traffic study in this year's budget, right?
It
That
got
John
pulled.
said.
It was pulled. The
Yeah.
Board of Finance pulled it, unfortunately. But that's where, A, we want to put it back in for the next year's budget, but ideally don't want to wait till next year. And that's why John suggested pursuing an off-cycle request. And that's why Jen's working on getting a quote, you know, saying, you know, to do this, this, and this, how much would it cost?
To basically put that on our December agenda.
Do you think you'll have it?
I'm hoping I will
Okay.
have something this week.
Right.
I just, now it's Wednesday and I don't have it, but he said this week, so,
Yeah.
I'm
So
hoping
we
in the
would
next.
hope,
Yeah,
because
let's
I
hope-
would
have that
personally,
quote.
if there's any way we could wrestle that money loose,
Yeah,
Right,
because you really, as Jen mentioned, you kind of want to do it, you know, spring and into summer.
right,
So if you
You
don't
can't
get the
do it in
money
the
until
fall,
July 1st,
right.
you're really missing that time period.
Yeah.
I think there's some urgency here, as you said, people are parking all over the place, which is not ideal from a safety standpoint. We know it compromises the trees when they park on the routes, and that's why we had the big boulders put out. So it's just,
Also dangerous.
it is suboptimal.
Oh, yeah,
It is
totally.
suboptimal, so I think it's a sooner than later, and that we probably would position it that way.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, okay. So going through priorities, again, we have to execute the Weed Beach Short Lane. Again, I know personally, I put both of them in there, so I don't know if that was an interpretation thing or not. Next was tree plan, both maintenance and replacement. We talked about that, you know, we do naturally lose a number of trees. I think at Cherry, you and Sandy pointed out a tree that down kind of towards the pond, the gazebo, that you feel is compromised and
Yep.
needs to be removed. And it was our general feeling during the tour that for every tree that comes down, we should be replacing with at least one, if not two. Not necessarily in that exact spot, but, you know, within the park or whatever, just looking to make sure that we're constantly replenishing. The dredging of Cherry Lawn Pond, which we've talked about for hopefully a long time. You're right, it's gonna be so dry soon. Just go there,
There's no water.
scoop it out with buckets. And also Tilly. And then a couple of people put down making the backboard area behind Weed Beach Tennis Court more useful. I believe that was where Sandy mentioned that he wanted to clean invasives up, so that's somewhat of an invasives project. And then he talked about adding a chipped path,
Yep, to get.
kind of from where the backboard is up and over the hill to the back of the hut. And it sounded like he thought that was something this stuff could just do over the winter.
that's not a capital thing.
Kind of sounded like no.
No, I think that's something that we'd be able to do. Again, it's just gonna depend on the weather and things like that. So if it's not
If they're
snow
not
covered,
plowing
if they're
a lot.
not, if they're not under snow and stuff, then they'd be able to hopefully do some of that removal and put the trail in.
Okay. And then Terry also summarized most noted park-specific feedback, which were 6 people referencing the Tilly Pond trees needing replacement, 4 people mentioning the Weed Beach dunes. Now, that's different than the meadow project. That's just the fact that we had the Boy Scout project, did some of the dunes, need to do the other dunes, and then they consistently need to be maintained. The condition of the Cherry Lawn soccer field was mentioned by 4 people. The pond was mentioned by 4. Maguan invasives by 4. That's especially down near the playground. parking at Cherry Lawn, and the Pear Tree Boat Ramp. And then we have comments on each of the beaches, and I don't know if you guys want to take time to go through these, or, I mean, you've read them.
I think you got a lot.
We've talked about a lot of these issues, so I don't want to belabor all of the points, so that was there. And then you'll see the survey results detail, which really, it's really putting what we just talked about more in graphic, form, where if it's orange, it was really, it's good, everything looks good. Red was, needs some attention, and blue was, need a lot of attention. And again, the y-axis is the number of people who comment on that. And again, it varies by item and by park, depending on how many people went to and responded on that park. Okay. So, unless anybody has specific questions on that, it's really a graphic of the things that we talked about. So that is pretty much it. So it feels like things stayed fairly level, some improvements in some area, but feeling like things like invasives, we need more work, and then identifying some of these issues that we've been talking about and we haven't progressed them as much as we would have liked. True. Other comments, summary points? Surprises? No? All right, and I think that is a good lead. This is a good exercise because as we go through the budget process, that as you were asking, we'll vote on the budget in December. It will go to our town administrator, who takes the first pass at it and frankly will remove things. Then it goes to the selectmen, who will go through department and department, and Jen and I will go, to those meetings, the night, and, maybe say, make some, public comment, or be there to ask questions about specific items, kind of champion for key points. Then the selectmen go through, do whatever they do to the budget. Then it goes to the Board of Finance, who goes through their process, and then to the RTM. So it goes through quite a few different bodies where things can be changed or removed along the way, or occasionally we've gotten things added back somewhere along the line.
I mean, one of the things I would say to this is just, I would suggest that we do this earlier. It should really be done probably early September, so certainly sometime in September, because again, the budget information that we're looking at was done with none of this information in hand. So it would be helpful to have that stuff ahead of time and start some of the budget discussions sooner, so that we can get, and even, I'm sure they would like it more so voted on in November versus December, just for the entire process. So that would be my comment on it, just to try to get things done sooner.
So then we're ready to move on to the budget discussion, and Jen, I'll have you take us through. I like this format, by the way. Pam presented it a different way. I found this much easier.
This is much easier.
Much easier.
Really?
I think
we took that from what she had done and we tried to simulate it,
it
so.
didn't look like this. It was almost like a print right from Eunice or something. It was really hard to read,
This
so
is tidier.
this is.
Okay, well, I'm glad you liked it.
was like-
We thought we were just making up the same thing.
This is so much better. Just a couple points I know it took me a while to get used to is you'll see things like salaries in numerous categories, and that's because they get broken down more like functionally for Parks and Rec. So the office salaries in a different section from the maintenance, and that gets broken down even some more. So some things you'll see, like full-time salary, you'll see in multiple places.
Okay.
I found that confusing.
Does salary include all the benefits and stuff?
No. I think they're covered some in another line somewhere else in the budget. So I think what I'll do is try to give you kind of high level in each area and where the bigger changes are, or things that we did, and then you can ask questions on this. So again, this is sort of the initial draft. There will be revisions being made to this. You know, number one, after reviewing it here and hearing feedback and comments and the review that we just did, as well as I mentioned before, we're still waiting on some pricing on a few things. So some of the stuff will change before it comes back out to you. Something else that happened is finance asked us to look at where we could potentially merge some different budget lines, because there were so many. So I'll go through those, I'll touch on those. I mean, some, we had a whole budget line for $200 for, you know, small tools. I'm like, really? So we rolled those in. So we did things that kind of made sense. I've already gone over those with the finance director, so she's on board with those. There will probably be another bigger change made in combining some two major budget lines, but that will be for next year, because there's a lot more that has to go into it to make sure we do it right if that works out. But it made sense to her. So I'll start with the revenue, since that's listed at the top. So overall, our revenue is up from last year a little over 13,450. It is smaller. It's a small increase, and you'll see there are a number of negative numbers on there, unfortunately. A bunch of that is really based on just more of actual reality. So I think we're trying to look at, especially like boat permits and kayak rentals. I don't know why there was a number in kayak rentals that was more than you could potentially get, because it was more spaces, you know. So we went through and actually kind of pulled every single one. Okay, I don't even remember what it is in my notes, but you know, it's $200, there's 150 spaces. So we sell out, that's what we put in for that. But before that, it was a higher dollar amount, which didn't make sense. Our paddle court revenue, again, was much higher than what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a trend since COVID. It obviously peaked during COVID, because that was one of the few things that you could do. And now it's slowly kind of going back down. So even though we added a court, so we did bump some money back up, but we are seeing that drop off. And even this season so far, it's been a little bit slower, where we have the booked reservation. Those are full, but times when those bookings are not there has not been as full until this last week or so, because I think more people are still out playing tennis and pickleball rather than going to paddle, because that it's more of a winter cold weather sport, and people like to play it more in the cold. So we're starting to see that pick back up. And then even like the pickleball number, again, just appeared to be kind of an unrealistic number. And also it changed because there was a request to have more open play times. So we added more open play times, which means there's less times for people to make reservations. The other piece is because now our lessons were also on those courts, so there was less time for people to be able to reserve them versus what they had the year before. So.
Are there any pricing changes in here?
No.
So at this point, this is like
This,
whatever you're assuming for demand, current pricing.
correct.
And if we were to talk about, like, would we traditionally increase prices 5% a year, 10% a year, or something like that? Or is that, or this maybe precedes you, but like?
Based on my understanding, when we were looking, I was talking a little bit about that. Some of them have not been raised in years. So clearly there's.
Because that would seem like it'd be low hanging fruit.
There is, exactly. So there is potential here. But we thought it was important to be kind of realistic and just kind of, I mean, I can tell you we're gonna bring in $100,000 and it'll help offset things, but you know, reality is when we don't meet that, well, now we're in a hole.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was trying to be realistic, and you'll see that in a bunch of places. There were some other spots where I think numbers were way low, that I changed things around, or different rates were used.
Can I ask
so.
a follow-up? So, and this is a bit to you as well, so sort of process. So, speaking for myself, I would say like, all right, if these prices haven't been raised in a few years, costs are up all over the place, 10%, 15%, like, do we say, I mean, I really don't want to get into a debate. I would much rather say like, we have these people that run the department, like, don't have to do a study, just like come up with like a new pricing list, and is that something that I can suggest? Do we have to vote on it? Can we?
We'll be
does-
talking about the pricing, and Amy, please chirp in here, because you and I have been on the commission the longest. I would say that historically, the bias has been towards not raising prices. With the thinking is that it's like a town, that the parks are a town amenity for people's general happiness and well-being. And
And they pay taxes.
they pay taxes to use them and whatever, so that, I would just say that, Mary Louise, you've been around a while too, that
Yeah.
was more sort of the philosophy. So occasionally we would tweak some pricing, but the mindset just wasn't, let's raise prices because we know inflation's 5% or 10% and we should be following it. And I'm not saying that thinking is actually right or wrong, and I think this gets back to what we talked about, Jen bringing in the disciplines that they'd implemented Westport, and really, coming up with a kind of a cost recovery philosophy. And I think especially as we're going to start seeing more pressure on the parks, because the town with the multifamily housing is really going to, it's exploding in terms of so many new housing units, which will increase demand on the park, and then, you almost have to use, pricing to
Yeah, well, the
some
money has to
degree.
come from somewhere, right?
Right,
it's-
so I think
yeah.
we really have to take a hard look at this going forward, much more so, and more in a bit more business-like manner than we have historically.
And I will say that kind of goes back to what I was saying with that whole process, and it's gonna be dependent on every individual community, how they want to set it, whether people want it to be tax-based, or whether you want it to be more user fee and individual pay. Westport was very much on it should be user fees. So, I mean, we were like 90+% cost recovery.
Yeah,
Here, we're around 50%. But again, there's no wrong or right.
There's no wrong or right.
It's what you think that philosophy is. If it should be, it should be the taxpayers, and, it's open use. So that goes into that whole.
Well, and I think like the idea of the philosophy, and, I mean, I think that's like a bigger question, but I'm just like, if we were 50% cost recovery, and costs have gone up 10% in the last 2 years, we're no longer 50% cost recovery. So,
Right.
I
It
would
is
just.
going down,
Okay, yeah, so,
because our costs are going up, right? So
Yeah.
now we're at like 50. When I look back to a couple of years, it was more like 54, 52. So it could be just tweaking a little bit just to kind of stay on par.
just to stay, and I
Right.
think that would send a better message
Mhm.
to the powers that be that we're gonna be asking for money
Right.
for things.
Right. But yeah, so that'll be coming for December.
Right, but these are the discussions we need to have, and how we think about it in this environment versus
Right.
environment of a few years ago. And certainly, I will also tell you that during the pandemic, there was just this sort of like visceral feel, because people were so reliant on their local parks because they weren't traveling and our programming, that there was just this sort of feeling that it just kind of didn't feel right to be bumping up the prices now, because, prices were going crazy everywhere, and it was just like, this is something we can do as a community to support everybody. It just kind of didn't feel good to do that.
Well, there was certainly that discussion around the beach parking permits.
Yeah.
It was fairly robust.
Okay, so some of the other items on here, just under
I mean,
revenue.
it is curious, or it's just little amounts here and there, but
But it adds up.
yeah, and like, I don't understand why the budget for the beach parking permits is lower than the actual for this year. Are we expecting a fall off on the beach permits?
The beach park, it's up. It went up 5,000.
Oh, so the revised budget is 5,000, okay.
Revised budget
Wait,
is
but
current,
I think
we're
what
doing
Amy's
fiscal year
saying-
proposal.
So your proposal, but it's
410.
still, 410, but still below actual.
Yeah, Amy's saying that the fiscal
Oh,
24.
for fiscal '24,
Actual, which is last year, was 417.
right. I mean,
This
and
year's
again,
budget
It's
is
just,
40.
they're little,
And
it's
again,
small
we-
amounts, 7,000 here, some there, I'm just wondering.
right, but
sort of what
again,
the
and I
full-
think that goes back to, we're gonna be taking another look around through this. That was the initial, like, okay, and let's see how it comes in. But again, we'll also go back and see how much more did we come in some of the past years and things like that too. So we'll be looking at that. Some of these other things are, it all gets so confusing. Under Parks and Rec program, part of that was because we moved the kayak and paddleboard rental money was in that line.
Oh, I see.
And we felt that should be in rent
Okay.
versus there. But the dollar amount did drop down. That is based on the sales, and the sales for that was way down this year. It will be
Percentage of
going.
revenue?
It's
Is
a
that how they
percent,
call
well,
it?
it's based on the revenue, yeah.
Right.
There's a set fee for, between dollar amounts. That will be going back out, so we may see a better number. But I kind of split the difference in there on that one.
Where's the revenue from the
And-
snack bar?
It's in rent.
That's in rent.
And then the other part of why rent is down is, it's our understanding that the art center is no longer gonna be using the Mather Center.
Is that all?
Yep,
Can we have it for yoga?
well, that's my thing, is I'm hoping that that will mean that it would open up and we can then use it for programming, which would be great, and that would then help us offset in other areas. But, so we lost, we're losing 8,000 out of that, so that hits. But those were the main things of how these numbers kind of pulled out for revenue.
So the town hall rent, I was supposed to say comes to Parks and Rec? That's interesting.
Just, and I don't understand, I think we haven't figured this one out. No one in the office seems to really know this, but for whatever it's because it's the Mather Center part, and I think it's because we handle the scheduling of it, so it goes through our system. Whereas the other part of their rent for the other bill goes through the selectman's office or finance department or something, so that's separate. But this piece goes through us.
Okay.
For whatever reason. But hopefully, that's the case, it opens up and we get to use it, and then hopefully we'll be running more programs out of there, and then we'll get more revenue from the program side.
And I just
so-
wanted to clarify for Ed and Cindy, the last
Yeah,
line,
I was
the
just gonna
operating,
say that,
okay,
yeah.
the rec programs. What that is that's all the classes we run, whether it's it's the net profit, so it's the difference between the revenue and then what we pay the provider. This used to be budgeted, it was gross revenue, and then there was a separate line in gross expenses, and what happened is years that we delivered a lot of programming, the revenue went up, but the expenses, and we had to go to the selectmen to like get a transfer approved to exceed it. So it's now just in a net line, so that's basically how much money we're turning back to the town,
Right.
sort of profit from all the classes that we
Right.
run.
So that one we're expecting up about 57,000.
Good job, Karen.
So that part's good. So expenses. So if we look at the administration expenses, so think of that, those are mostly, are the administration of everything, so kind of the rec office. So again, in total, all of our expenses are up off of the revised budget, and I had a little panic attack this morning because I'm like, shit. So some numbers I was looking at weren't jiving, and it's because of the difference between adopted budget and revised budget. But you guys in the past had looked at revised budget, so that's what we had gone with that. So we're up in expenses about 93,000. So it's about a 5% increase. Again, it will be going, if we don't, well, that will definitely be going up because we know I'll get to it, but some of the other numbers that we're still waiting to come in with landscape services and some other things. But one of the things I want to point out is that out of that increase, about 39% of that is salary or staff related. So we kind of, to some extent, don't have control over that. It's either contractual, it's all of the salaries, it's all of our seasonal people, our lifeguards. Minimum wage now goes up every single year, which means our salary scales for all of them have to slide and go up. So there's always an increase with that piece.
But no change in headcount, it's just.
No change in headcount.
And when people go out on leave, can you bring in a temp? Or no, you just have to make do?
I don't know, I'll be finding that out.
Yeah.
And which we'll be talking about, but at times, well, I do know when Tamara was out, we were able to bring somebody in, I came in a week
Tara came
before she
back,
came
yeah.
back, but we were able to bring somebody in as kind of a temp person, so we'll be trying to work with that as well. So just a couple key things out of the admin part, the conferences and meetings, you see a big jump there. That is because Jim, the assistant director, has requested to attend NRPA's director's school. So I have put that in. I think that would be a good thing for him to attend, and we'll see where that goes.
Where is it?
Where's that one? Columbus or Cincinnati? Something like that. It's in the Midwest.
Is director's school?
It's called Director's School, yeah. So it's all, it's like going to a conference.
Sounds like a leadership.
It's like a leadership, it's
program.
like a one week program. I think it's actually, might be a 2-year, you go 1 week and then 1 week another year. So there are different things through NRPA. It also in there is the NRPA conference that I go to, so I did still put in for two staff to go to that, so it would be like Cassie and I would go to that, Jim would go to the director's school. One of the other new things in here is, you'll see there's now a new printing line. Again, what we did is there was printing under beach and court, which was all the stickers and envelopes and all that kind of stuff. And then under organized recreation, there was printing, the glass, it's making me crazy, sorry, on and off, for our brochures that we do. So in talking with Jen, I said it would make more sense, so we're doing one printing line all coming out of here. So you'll see those zeroed out in some of the other lines.
Would it make sense, or is there like a roll-up of everything into like one, or, because like some of these categories, maybe printing is only in one spot, like here, but then the salaries are in different spots, like is there a roll-up summary, or?
I don't know what you're, I don't know.
You're
I'm not
saying, is there
understanding.
a way to
Together,
run a
like-
separate doc that showed like the whole salary line combined for
Yeah,
each of these?
or is it just salaries that's across each of it, you know what I mean, like it's, like,
No, you'll see things that are duplicated, and that's where some of them are, we're gonna try to, when you get into like facility maintenance materials that you'll see.
yeah.
I guess saying you've got training in admin, you've got training in beach and court.
Yeah, I just wonder if
Right.
like it's
Could a report be
easy to.
run, so you just have one thing that shows
Yeah.
all the revenue and then like all the full-time salaries, all
Before you get
the
into the-
training.
before you get
And
into the
I think it's a
departments.
programming question whether
I don't know.
You
I don't
can
know if we can
make
pull
the
it.
system do that or not.
Or if this is in Excel, I could do it myself, but,
Well,
you need
you
to
might
make
be-
sure you're comparing apples and apples, and you're not
I mean, there are different types of thing, training under
rolling things
under
up,
beach
but-
and court is stuff for,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I know, but
it's
it's
stuff for
like.
like the lifeguards and
Yeah,
CPR and that kind of
exactly,
stuff.
but if you wanted to know like how much you were doing in training for the department, right now would be like,
Right.
you'd have to manually calculate, which is why I'm just.
We might be able to we don't put this in here, we put it into another system, and then it gets exported out and put into Excel, and then we have to play with it.
Okay,
So but there might be a way,
I'm really just asking, is there like basically a department budget before you go through all the breakdown? So to compare to like the schools, there was like a school budget that had all the salaries, and then it was shown different ways. These are the English teacher salaries, these are the salaries at Ox Ridge, but there was one line for, these are the salaries
I
across the
think
whole.
he's just asking for an overview sheet,
Yeah.
just
Right.
wrap up.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
If-
it's-
if
Yeah, I
it
mean,
can
I
be
have to
I think
see,
it's
yeah.
pretty
produced as a
easy to
report.
do.
Yeah, I just have to see. how we
Definitely
can do
don't
it.
create it
You
if
can
it's.
do it in Excel, just so it's a cover sheet, so we can just see, okay, all salaries, this is, and this is the operating expenses, this is the revenue expenses.
Yeah,
You know, this is great, and it's granular, and this is the underpinning for the overview sheet.
They would then say, like, if somebody were to say to me or you, like,
yeah,
what's our full, what's the salary budget for the town of Darien to run the parks? I'd have to sit here and add up
Add
nine
up the
different
different
numbers. Say,
Yeah, I
do
think
10.
it's a worthy exercise.
Yeah, we can try to.
and also if there's any way to add FTE numbers to these departments, because I think
Yeah.
you said the head count remains the same, but if, and I realize some of these are seasonal, but like, I guess the full-time and part-time salaries, if there's any way to add in like whatever the number is, and then you could roll that up as well. If,
We'll just balance what Jen's gotta
Yeah.
get done between now
I
and
know,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
It shouldn't, honestly, it shouldn't be it's not that complicated. I think
Yeah.
you just add it together.
you don't understand,
I
this
think
is
it's
not, this took a while, but,
yeah,
I'm sure,
because it's much
definitely.
more detailed, like,
yeah.
this is more of what I'm looking at and what I'm inputting,
Mm-hmm,
and this is scaled down to what's in this, so I'm just trying, I'll try to figure out how we can do that. I mean, that's almost more of a,
yeah,
I can tell you, there's 5.5 people in the parks, there's
Yeah.
7, I mean, so, actually, one of them's in the admin, though,
Yeah.
somebody's in admin, so
yeah,
I'll try to figure out how we can
Yeah.
do something along those lines.
yeah. Why does the professional services line go from 3170 to 30,000 underneath the admin?
And then it's 0,
Yeah,
is because that, I believe, was our active, our recreation, our software, our registration software, and that is now under this software maintenance and support.
okay,
And I think there was a change in the way the contract was done, obviously before I was here, and then they went to an annual,
oh, got it, and then it goes
an annual
40,
revenue, so then they changed
Okay.
it, so now it's under software maintenance and support.
got it, okay,
But you can see pops up, it goes from 0, and pops to 40.
Yeah.
Right.
okay,
Right, and then we're estimating, because they gave us, it could be, the max could be 5%,
Right.
so that's the 2,000,
okay,
to be safe.
And then the other thing that would also be helpful, is presumably easier, but to put like, for each of these little subsections, subtotals. So like, we're
Mhm.
looking at,
Yeah,
Right.
we missed that when I was, because I was
Yeah.
looking at that for my other report too. And I will say, this was trying to
So you get to see
push
it.
to get this out to you
Right.
guys, because it
Yeah.
was like,
So it's
Yeah.
easy to compare year to year.
Mhm.
But I recognize there's a lot of work that went into
Yeah.
this.
totally.
everybody's laughing, I should show you my pad. So, oh yeah, where are we?
Court.
Yeah.
Beach and Court, just trying to pick the highlights here.
Mm-hmm,
So again, the salary increases, so that one you'll see it's a pretty decent jump. We were actually under budget this past fiscal year, and I had to go and ask for transfers for that. In looking at it, there were some areas that I think the wrong dollar rate was used to calculate it, so it was way off in some of the areas were okay. So I've corrected that. So that's why that is kind of a decent jump there. Again, the overtime, sorry, that was in the wrong spot. Again, the printing there got moved to admin, so that's why that got zeroed out. Security services, that is the company that does at the gate, the security gates at Pear Tree and at Weed. That went out and was, under a new contract that started this past season. They kicked in July. And it's a lower rate, so the 80,000 will cover it, and actually we thought they did a much better job. And we actually, as we all saw, kind of our revenue numbers were also up, so we think they were more on the ball, as well. So
So then would seasonal and temporary be lifeguards?
seasonal and temporary is, yeah, it's all the lifeguard staff.
Where does the geese, the guy?
I'll show you that, we'll get there. Just looking to see, yeah. So then we get to, I guess, any other questions on beach and court? The rec facilities maintenance, so this is basically, think of the parks crew and equipment. Although I'm not sure why junior sailing program is there, but that's a whole nother issue. So again, you'll see the OT line for that has a decent, again, the salaries are a contractual issue. This overtime salary is contractual, as well as, again, in looking at the way it was all calculated, there were not enough hours put in for like beach, and there was a breakout for beach and garbage collection, which is the summer. It was like 3 times the cost. We've lucked out, we have been over budget in those lines, and we've kind of lucked out, I think, because our storms, there's money in there for snow and storm cleanup. So I think because we haven't really used it, like that helped offset it, but that's why you see a pretty big jump in there, so.
This is you said it's in the contract for
They're contractual, I said, part of the increase is because their rates go up, because they have a
Right.
2.8% increase in their contract.
Yeah, but no, I missed what you were saying, the overtime amount is so large because.
So overtime, number one, their hourly and their time and a half and double time rates increase. But also because in coming to this, the budgeted number, the number that was the way the stuff was broken out was not sufficient to, I mean, it would cover 6 weeks. Like, you know, I broke it out, it's 17 weeks times 2 guys, times this average rate, times, you know. So we calculated out so we know really what it should be costing, and it was $4,500 instead of like $14,000.
Yeah, I just did wrong.
So it was just wrong, so it's just correction.
Yeah,
Where's the cleaning of the bathrooms at the beaches?
Different one.
Yeah, but which of these general categories?
It's under grounds, fields, and buildings.
Oh,
Yeah,
wouldn't have guessed that.
no, it's all, this is part of why,
Yeah.
you know, we're saying, oh, we should really take a look. So we're gonna try to move all the stuff from like probably beach and courts that are more facility related into just grounds, buildings, and grounds. So it all makes,
Yeah.
you know, and then we can always track it by like a project number or something if we want to know how much we spend on beaches or whatever, because it also turns into a problem. You need a little bit more money over here. It's kind of the same thing, but we have to go through a whole transfer process. And so if it's all kind of in one spot, it'll make it easier for us to operate. The money's still there. And it just seems to make more, like why it's split up into 8 different places, it doesn't really make much sense. So that will be an ongoing thing over the next year. It's probably this year and next year as we try to consolidate things a little bit. So also in this line, you'll see motor fuel and lubricants, small tools and tires. So we moved all those, rolled all those into equipment, maintenance, parts, and supply. So that's why that kind of has a decent bump up. But that's, again, just trying to clean things up a little bit. I was like, do we really need to know $200 on,
No.
yeah, so. Any other questions on rec facilities maintenance? Okay. So organized recreation and events. So again, you'll see the, so now here, this is another weird one. So this, when you see part-time salaries in here, this is our adult basketball and our co-ed volleyball supervisors. And we also have money in there for if we need aides, like special needs aides for kids in programs. So we have money included in there if we need to use that. So this is basically having to do with expenses, having to do with some of our programs. The main thing here,
What about things like the fireworks and
so that's,
where would that be?
that comes out of, partially out of here, and then there's also a fireworks line. So when you see here, program expenses,
Yeah, that's curious.
program expense, and that's one we're trying to get, I'm trying to get them to change that to events because it's too confusing with our other programs. So that's really our events line. We're bumping that up, $10,000 was to bump that up for an additional money to go towards the fireworks. Slowly trying to, I think, kind of get up, because we're having more difficulty getting sponsorships for them, because everybody's always going to the same well for everything. So it's to help get some additional money for that. So under there falls like, we do some movies with the Youth Commission. We're looking at, we put money in again for a fall event, the luau at Lee Beach, festive night, old fashioned holiday, daughter duo dance, mother-son event, adventure day, and some concerts, things like that. So that's what that bump up is for, and then the remainder of that gets paid for out of sponsorships.
But some of those events have revenue, don't they?
Yes, and those,
And the revenue
Those were
goes
in the
into-
program.
In the beginning.
those were in the
Expenses.
Parks and Rec program
Okay.
fees.
Okay, so those revenues.
So
are there,
those
but the
revenues
expenses
go
are here.
into that.
So they're not netted.
So, yeah, so that includes
Okay.
the, any ticket sales, parking sales, anything, vendors, if we have vendors. So that does get put in under revenue.
And on the sailing program, what
Yes.
does that consist of?
That is, we pay $4,500 to the sailing program. My understanding of how this came about is years ago, I guess we used to handle their payroll or something along those lines. It was decided that no, we shouldn't be doing that. So now that cost, that this is to offset the cost that we used to, of what we used to cover for
Do
them.
for them.
Right.
And they cover their own expenses, basically.
My understanding is that this was to help cover the cost of whatever they do for their payroll.
Who is them?
Junior
The
sailing.
junior sailing.
But having nothing to do with the town.
No,
No.
it used to be.
So then why do we stop doing it?
I say, one could argue this is something we should sunset.
No. Yeah, I don't know. We should talk about it with them.
Or alternatively,
We'll
give
have to talk
$4,500 to every other organization in town that wants to do something?
No, I agree with you. We should take a look at it, but they'll come and talk to you about it and they'll have a whole rationale.
Fine, but the budget will be done by then. Like, it's taken out of the budget, they can come talk to you about it in January.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Right.
I tried to cut it when I was on the board of selectmen,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
She got incredible
It's a tough
pushback, I
one.
must say. but I agree with that.
Jamie was a big proponent of it. She really wanted, she likes that selling around. But anyway, doesn't matter.
I
There's,
think the
No, but you make a good
Yeah.
point.
I just
Okay.
don't think we
You
should
gotta
be
do
You
it.
get
paying
into
for it.
precedent that you could say, okay,
Yeah.
the first year, and then they can adjust their pricing and
Something
whatever.
like that.
They're
We
a
should take a
separate
good look at it.
They're a 501c3, so they should be
Right.
Little
fully,
League, you know,
fully.
Little League, anything else, yeah, we
Yeah.
just not,
Mhm.
so.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
So if we took it out,
Yeah, I wasn't saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying there's details associated with it.
It's a precedent on that.
Okay, where were we? Okay, so organized rec. One of the other things is under operating supplies. Again, I don't know why they were in there, but there was money in for nets and like roll dries and things like that to maintain tennis courts, pickleball nets, padding to go on the backboards for the basket. I'm like, those are facilities that has nothing to do with the rec program. You have to do that whether you're having a program or not. So that got moved into
Elsewhere.
Okay.
under grounds, buildings, and expenses. So that gets added in. So that's why you see that down. And I know this is all to totally confuse everybody.
No, I got it. It's just shifted things
Yeah, we're
around.
fine.
So
But
it's not a true change, it's just a shifting.
Right, but yeah, because some of this just really did not make a lot of sense to me. So now under grounds, fields, and buildings, again, that groundskeeping services, 18 is what was in there. Again, this is one that will definitely be going up. We're waiting on, as we had talked about on the tour, we're looking to have a contractor come in, be able to redo the 2 dunes that were not done, as well as fix up the 2 that were done, and then be coming in on a routine basis to maintain the weeds, the mugwort and everything else, because it's not sustainable the way we're doing it with volunteers. We don't have the staff to be able to do that. So we're looking at bringing them in for that, as well as to maintain a few other little garden areas and plant areas.
Yeah.
And we're also looking at, cost will also include, I know we're gonna need more plugs and stuff like that for the grass. So we're working on combining all that. So that'll be going in there as well. Tree maintenance, we did bump it up 20.
Is that enough?
I mean, I think
No.
there was never enough, but there is a bunch of work, there is some work, and there was some trees that Sandy did feel that they can do themselves, like the tree that we talked about that you brought up that was on the tour. I mean, it's a huge tree, and I didn't think we'd be able to do it. He feels that they can't, because there's nothing really around it, so they can easily drop it. So we're trying to look at what we can do and what needs to be contracted out. So this is for stuff that's outside of our scope, but if there's stuff that's near houses, near wires, things like that, we definitely contract that out.
So this is like one tree,
So, I mean,
right?
I mean,
Well,
where do you
we
think
put
will
in-
come in this year? Because I thought you said this
Well,
year's budget is 18,000. I thought
was
you told me we
18,000.
basically
I
spent that already.
I already moved some money over because we know there's a couple things to come in, which is up to, I think now 22, 24, somewhere in there, depending on how it goes. I mean, we have been more around 23, 24,000 a year, but lately all of us, like, since I got here, even Sandy has said, it seems really odd, but it's like every tree is something that's in an area where we can't do it or whatever. So we were putting into this budget, I don't know how I started it, but with maybe 25, I put in an additional 9 to do, we were thinking maybe either Cherry Lawn or Tilly, in terms of kind of taking, I think, one park at a time. Because again, you have to remember, part of this is about bandwidth and how much staff can handle as well. In terms of going through, pruning up, and if we can kind of rotate them through each year maybe, if it's stuff that's outside of our capability. And then we were also putting in additional money for tree planting. We were putting in, thinking about 4,000, but that number should probably go up higher. Especially if we don't want to get really small trees, then we have to get bigger, and then we have to have them come in and plant them if they're beyond our, if they're not super small. So we might want to increase certainly that line as well.
Ed, you have a question?
Well, and maybe you, so tree maintenance includes taking down trees as well as planting trees?
Well, we never had a tree planting line, so I was throwing that in under tree maintenance as kind of a tree.
But so then when we talked about before, or someone said if we take a tree down, plant two, like where?
There's no funding for that. There's no specific funding for
Yeah,
that.
okay.
But you're saying the cost of those trees and getting them planted, you've included in this line item?
Right, that's part of that additional 20,000.
But if a tree had to be taken down, your staff couldn't do that, like that has to be contracted out, right?
It depends.
Some they
So
do.
some we do, but again, if they are in depending on the size, our bucket truck, we have a bucket truck, but we can only go up so far, I think it's 40 feet or something. So if it's something higher, if something needs to be climbed, we can't do that. So again, if it's something, like we've had some in some like off wooded areas, but it's near a house or they're leaning towards a house, we're not gonna touch that, we bring somebody in.
Yeah, I mean, the trees that I observed in, at Cherry Lawn, you know, near the parking lot, I think as long as there's no cars parked there,
Right.
you know, you probably do
So-
have access to it.
Right, so
but-
there's a bunch of those that Sandy thought they can do.
Okay,
It's a matter of like, okay, so during the off-season, again, it goes back to timing and bandwidth as well. So, once they're done with leaves, because now they're heavy into the leaf pickup, they should be able to start doing some things like that. So as long as the weather is decent for us, we should go out, because we talked about a whole bunch of those kinds of, you know, where you can see it, where they're dead, where they're
yeah,
not doing
I
well.
just don't want
Cherry
it
lawn was
falling
one.
on somebody's car.
Exactly. So a bunch of those I think we'll be able to do.
In view of the fact that there's more focus on the trees that are out there, and the fact that they really were ignored for decades,
Right.
can't we get it up higher?
As I said, this was an initial go
Yeah.
through because I wanted
Yeah.
feedback.
Because this is really trees that fall down that they have to remove.
Yep.
Trees that we've determined are diseased or dead that have to be removed.
Yep.
It should be for maintenance of
Pruning.
existing trees,
Right.
because
Pruning and
I've heard is
crowning
all
and-
trees really need to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they need trims, just like our hair does. They need
Right.
kind of- And then trying to replace trees, you know, as we lose them to natural causes, because we really don't.
Right.
We don't go in and just take down trees, you know, unless there's something wrong with it. Yeah.
Well, since you're talking about like, as a, you know, granted the trees, mine will be less specific on trees, but sort of really focusing on these sort of two numbers here at the bottom. So like, I don't know if we've had any guidance from the town as to what we should be doing. To me, you know, I would ideally like to see a total expense line that's less than 5%. But that said, if 5% is what it is, because if I'm reading it right, it's really not.
5% increase?
Yeah, like I'd feel better if we could sort of come in with a budget that was 3% higher, or 4% higher, and it's a bit of reallocating. It's like, yeah, well, okay, we're gonna put more money in trees, and we're not gonna fund this junior sailing bonus, or whatever it is that we're doing. You know, it's a reallocation. But that said, I think this really points to we gotta do something on the revenue, because the idea that we're gonna come in and say we need 9% more to basically do the same thing, like we're not launching a new program, we're not taking care of another facility, it just feels like people are, whether it's the town administrator or the board of finance or the board of selectmen, somewhere is gonna say 9% is too high. So I'd rather vote on a budget that is more realistic and not something that's just gonna be cut back.
Did they give you guidance?
Mm-mm.
They didn't set it, you know,
No, there was nothing of like, we want to see a 3% or 2% or 5%. No. It wasn't given in that sense.
But it ends when they tell you what you got.
I mean, I think if there are things that we can, certainly it's not just to have a free-for-all and just keep adding, because
Sure,
we want to
yeah,
add,
yeah.
right?
No,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it's doing it responsibly. But I think if there are things that we can make good cases for, you know, I think the condition of our trees right now, you know, is something that could be, a good case could be made for it. And I think you kind of try, and again, then there's the conversations, it might not get past the town administrator, but these are things that we think are important. And then we try to figure it out. And again, it might be offsetting it, like you said, we take something else out, we don't fund something else, or no, it is important enough and people feel it's important enough, and then they give us the funding. So,
I think
I
ultimately
think
that's, yeah.
that's, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think the budget process is really two set priorities. It's like, well,
Right.
we need this money for these things, and like, so if the trees are important, like,
Right.
we think it's more important than these other things, and that's why we wanna cut this and fund that.
right.
Is that something we should talk about right now
We
specifically?
could, the trick is
What to cut?
So many of these things are, you know, the ongoing, you know, there's no add to staff.
Well, I can send you guys an email later this week with like some, I mean,
Things-
again, no, I don't mean to pick on Jim, but like, we can cut his conference. And we can cut the 4,500 on sailing. We can increase the revenue dramatically. I mean, those are just three things. I'm sure I could like go through there with, find some others, but like,
I mean,
this is food for thought, right?
yeah,
It's
no,
your
I'm
budget,
saying,
like, it's your budget.
everybody can certainly give their feedback.
I do
and-
think we can increase the revenue. I don't think
I think we can
Oh, yeah.
I think we can as well.
Yeah.
If we go back and take a little bit, you know, harder look, and I think if we look at some of those fees that haven't been raised in quite some time, okay, where does that offset? You know, there are some things that I would, you know, I will take anybody's comments, certainly, and
Also with
suggestions,
more
but then
users
also look at it.
coming in, had that been, even for like beach permit or, you know.
Right, and I
permit?
think that's why the
Baked
numbers
in.
were higher.
Right, but is
You know,
it
for the beach stickers, for those
the
permits.
5,000, yeah, but what,
No, but I mean, why
What was
it was up to
forecast?
417, like, it came in, or that's the question that was earlier, was that it was a higher,
right, but I'm saying for fiscal year '26 though, is it gonna continue to go up?
well, that's why I'm saying, I think the parking permits will probably go up, and I think that's a spot that we can pick.
How much is a regular parking permit?
It's 50 plus the tax. We charge 53, but the $3 is effectively the sales tax.
Okay, so you raised that 5%.
So, you know, I mean, and some of these I would be a little bit clear in like, when we look at like gate revenue, we were higher this year. Again, part of that is very weather dependent. So I would kind of pick and choose when I go back and re-look at that to see where, you know, because I think, like you said, we are having more people moving in, so I think you will have more
Right.
permits, right? So I think that's a pretty easy one to probably get some additional.
The revenue's definitely gonna come up with more people coming, we got 600 more units coming into the
Right.
town. But the,
But so will
If we're gonna-
expenses, I mean.
Right, because there's gonna be more wear
There's
and
gonna
tear
be
on
more.
everything.
but the, if we're gonna increase rates, I think the tax, and I said this last year, so kinda like broken record, but, you know, rather than tax the taxpayers in Darien, I would increase the rate on the out-of-towners by X amount. And we saw an increase this year. If we're gonna continue to have more residents going to the beaches, why not increase the rate on the non-residents? And
How many out-of-town
I,
permits do we issue?
out-of-town permits?
there's
Day
no-
passes.
There's no out-of-town.
Day
permits.
pass?
Sorry, the day passes,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, we don't do
Yeah,
that.
day
No.
Yeah, the
passes.
day, like, yeah, how many?
I don't know off the top of my
But the
head.
revenue was pretty
The-
significant year over year this year, wasn't it?
This year it went up.
I
Yeah.
thought
Quite a
the
bit.
report, one of the reports you guys gave
Yeah.
us one month that it was up year over year. That'd be
Yes.
good information to have
Yeah.
for the
It was. I'd
for
have
the
to
fee
pull the-
discussion, if we could have, you know, how many beach permits were issued, how many daily passes were sold, how many boat permits, I think. We really need that information as well to see the trending in usage, not just the the total numbers.
Like the Parks and Rec program fees, is that something that, is it practical, that it's down, that it's forecasted to be?
So that's not our programs. Those are what I was saying was our events.
Are we expecting
Um,
lower participation?
Wait, the Parks and Rec program fees are events?
They're the one-off events,
That's-
like the luau,
that's the
Fireworks.
Yeah,
Well, like
they're
that.
going up
So the
25, then 37.
the mother-son dance, things like,
Right.
where mother-daughter dance, the stuff like where we charge.
Right.
They're individual events as opposed to the 8-week courses or
Right,
whatever, which.
yeah.
yeah.
Why are they expected to be down?
Trying to get there. Well, part of it, again, was we took the kayak and paddleboard out of there.
So it's just in a different place.
Where's my list? I have a whole list with my, I think it's in my binder. It's not here, I don't have it here.
Yeah, we can look at it.
Yeah, it's in my binder. Yeah, that moved, and trying to think how much it was down. It was down 8,000. I can't remember what the other piece was. I don't know. And again, that might be something, you know, even for the fireworks, for the parking. Do you want to add a couple dollars to those? Like, that's where that money comes from. Do we add a little bit more? I mean, some of those, it gets to be like, now is it going to be too much?
Yeah.
You know, for that, for the parking, for the luau, because that's what that money is from. If it's, you really, the daughter duo dance and the mother something, like, you probably wouldn't want to price them too much higher because,
Yeah, I wasn't
You know,
thinking
outright.
you would necessarily increase the price of the event itself. It's more just if we're expecting more participation.
but some of
Or
those
are
are,
we already
we're
at
limited.
capacity?
We're
Okay.
limited, so,
Yeah.
you know, we can only sell so many passes for the
Fireworks,
fireworks because
yeah.
there's only so many parking spaces, the same thing for the luau. You know, the gym only has so much capacity, so for some of those other events. So most of those are like at capacity. So there's really no way for us to increase,
Unless you
Those-
increase the,
Unless
ticket
we-
prices.
right?
Okay, so it sounds like for our next discussion, we want to focus more on revenue, have at the ready, more detail about, both, you know, units and, you know, per unit price as opposed to just these gross numbers, so we can really think about where there might be some opportunities, because again, we have had a bias towards holding things flat
Right.
and.
But just on that, so would it be the commission that is kind of going through this price list? Or would we not just say, we want cost recovery to be what it is traditionally been and then let the department do it? And I
It
only say that
depends.
because like,
Yeah.
it just seems like that is not something that we should be flexible
It
with.
depends, and I don't have it, but the fee schedule that we approve each year covers the cost of the seasonal pass for residents at the
Yep.
park, court prices, certain things
You mean at the beach?
at the beach. But then program, excuse me,
program
program
stuff we
revenues,
do.
the commission has never set.
Yeah, no, and I
So
guess
that
I'm
way,
wondering,
yeah,
like,
so
why
it
are
would
we
just
setting
be
beach pass
providing
permit
guidance.
prices and not, it just seems to me, it just, not to say we shouldn't approve it, but it just seems like is a waste of our time to be debating whether it's $52 or $53. Like, that should be your job, like, no offense, but like, I'm not trying to put more work on you, but like, you know what other town beaches are doing, and you'd say, because of that, this is what we should be doing, and isn't that the way it should work, or?
I mean, I think for some of those and those types of, like, there's certain ones that you do.
How'd they do it in Westport?
I don't want to tell you. Every single fee went to the commission and to the Board of Selectmen. So every,
The answer I was looking
every
for.
program,
No, I mean, I think
everything.
people
And
have
it
too much
was-
time on their hands.
Exactly, I mean,
Yeah.
it was ridiculous, and you couldn't get anything
Done.
done, and you could never add a program, because you had to do it 2 years out, because you had to, I mean, it was so restrictive, it made it life very difficult. So some of these, I think, is fine, I think it would really, and maybe this is partially to your, you know, I think the department should come up with, these are the fees we think they should be, bring them and present them to the commission kicks it around, and we can say, why'd you get it? Well, we looked at here, 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 and here, these are the fees that they're charging, this is what we
I think that
think.
makes good sense.
So, I mean, that's how I would do it.
Yep, and then gets us longer term to the cost recovery, which is more of a
Right, and-
philosophy
and maybe
or
we do a-
policy.
We
Or
do this
guidelines.
as sort of
Yeah.
a stopgap kind of thing, because again, some of them, there was something I had asked, and it's like 2014 or something was the last time one of the, you know, it has to do with like the permits, like our rentals, things like that. Okay, well, some of these should be going up, I mean, it's kind of, so we can do that, you know, that's what we'll do, and we'll try to have some of the numbers to back that up, like you said, how many did we sell, how many gate things we had, and we
I mean, I do know sometimes we've had to discuss some of these prices because there were, you know, state legislations that were being kicked around, you know, and that required
That's where the
commissions
beaches are
Right.
tricky.
And I would be leery about raising the non-residents too high on that, and I will say,
Yes.
because that was something
Yeah.
that we were being hit with in Westport.
Yeah.
Well, Greenwich certainly went through it.
Right, and Westport was a similar kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
so
I
this
think we
is
have
where
to-
such,
I
just
think
give you a
Fairfield
history,
was
Ed,
sued
why.
For a little while. There was a fellow who was suing the town.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Fairfield.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
So-
if we were to put together this reservation system and include tennis in it next year, then we would have additional revenue coming from tennis courts, right?
We could,
So that's
Possibly.
another source of revenue.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So, just under the grounds,
Did I miss sort of the revenue that comes in from the soccer association and the baseball association?
that is under park facility permits, and I think that's one of the areas that we need to look at as
Yeah.
well. That gets put,
That's what I was.
that gets lumped in with the park permits, so with people do picnics and things like that at our permit, you know, they get permits for, that's in that line along with the youth sports.
Because isn't like Little League, it's like $5
It's
per
$5
student.
It's $5 per
participant,
participant.
yeah.
For soccer, for Little League, football,
Per season.
yes.
So if there's spring and fall, it's.
Right. And now that I
Well,
will
that
say,
sounds pretty reasonable.
yeah, I mean, that should go up. But
Right.
that is one that we'd have to think about ahead of time and time out, because any of those costs are gonna be passed along to the participants. I mean, that's what the groups are gonna do. So they tend to do registration way in advance, so we have to be able to give them plenty of time. So if we were to say, I mean, if we set the fees in December or January, whatever it is, I would say those probably wouldn't go into effect until the fall, because they'll already be doing their spring registration. So we just have to keep that in mind, that we'll kind of, budget-wise, actually, it'll be fine, because it'll kick in for this fiscal budget with the fall, so. But just know that wouldn't turn around right away, because it wouldn't be fair to the groups. Just the two things that I did want to point out, because they were asked, so pest control, that's where the geese leaf are, and we're having a ton of problems here at Town Hall. They come, they run, the geese go off, and they keep coming, but it's that time of year. But that's a contractual thing, and we were able to bring it down off the last contract, so that's why there's a reduction. And in here under the,
The geese problem at Tilly seems to be better.
yeah, yeah, that's better. I mean, they're running, geese relief is here at Town Hall, at Tilly, and at Highland. Those are the locations that we're doing. The facility repair and maintenance in there are things that are like services where we bring people in, so that's where the cleaning service is. And again, that's under a contract that was bid out. And then we have down below is the facility maintenance materials. So those are things that are like materials where we actually do the work, so it's just the supplies. And then you'll see it's a big jump, sort of, is the portable toilet rental. And I just am pointing that one out because that increase is so that we get handicap porta-johns versus the regular ones, because we realized, I said, wait a minute, none of them are accessible, so.
Where do we have these specifically, though?
Those are for
The
events.
locations?
Or this is for events?
Events.
No, this is for the different locations where we put them. So,
For events
No.
or just
no, for regular use, so like,
put
we have one at
Pear
Pear
Tree
Tree
in the
over the
winter.
winter, so that one we did as,
Oh, instead of
accessible.
opening the,
because the bathrooms, they get winterized, so
Right.
that gets closed out.
okay.
Highland, there's 4 locations.
Grand Island. That
No,
wouldn't
Great
be
Island
us.
is not us.
Okay.
Why am I trying to think about it?
Baker?
Baker or Baker,
Baker,
yeah.
Town Hall, Highland, and Pear Tree.
We have a we have a portable at Baker? I don't recall ever seeing it.
There was at one point, and then there were complaints, it got taken away. I've been getting more complaints of people asking for it again, so we're gonna try
Mhm.
putting it back there. Especially I think when we put in the new playground, I think it'll be, some more demand. You know, this time of year, we take them in though, but like,
Yeah.
other than Pear Tree. So they aren't there year round, so if they aren't out there right now, but yeah, so we'll be putting it out at Baker. At one point, there were some at McGuan, but the bathrooms and everything are open at McGuan year round, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, I can see people at Baker complaining, because it is it's like a neighborhood park, and everything is, the houses are right around the park.
Right, so then our thought was we'll put it out, and if it becomes an issue, maybe we put some sort of screening around it like was done at Highland. So you don't see the
Yeah.
blue plastic, but you see at least, you know, like a wood
Yeah.
stocking fence kind of thing. So.
And we've this last few years had what we sort of loosely refer to as beautification dollars, which are to do plantings or whatever. Is that in here somewhere?
Well, I was wondering about that too, and I didn't know whether it came under the next wish list or what.
And I did put
capital
some money in for,
Where we get
under
the
the facility maintenance as,
facility
for-
maintenance materials.
yeah, under that one, I did put some landscape materials, but there was, you're right, there was a beautification line in
But there's also invasives. Was
in-
that a capital improvement last year? We had the invasives, or was that
No,
part
it's
of?
in there, and I did keep in the $25,000 for invasives, I think, until we get a real plan that we can point to and say, this is
Implement.
exactly what we're gonna do. I don't wanna ask for additional, but I think we can keep that 25 and do some of the work like we've been talking about in the off-season.
Is that 25, is that money that we're paying for outside contractors, or is that just effectively an allocation of our guys' time?
It could be either, so right now, or it could be, you know, also for materials to plant
Okay.
new natives. So depending on how it goes, we could either bring people in, or I can go and ask for a transfer and transfer that over, and our guys can come in and do it, so, again, if they have time.
Okay, but it's here somewhere. Invasives and beautification is here somewhere.
Mostly we've been paying
that beautification.
paying it out in overtime to our own staff, and they're doing it on the weekends. But then they also, when they have kind of half a day, Sandy may send somebody to Wee or Cherry, whatever, and they kind of fill it in where they have capacity.
Yeah, under this facility repair and maintenance, that 145, that's where the 25 for invasives is.
Okay.
And I have to find.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's where the 25 for vacation,
Right here.
invasives are, and that 145 facility repair and maintenance, under grounds, field, and buildings,
Oh, okay, all right,
that fifth one down.
yeah.
Fourth
So
one
that's
down.
where it is?
So it's in there, and I
Okay,
made a note for the beautification, because I have to find that line.
okay.
Oh, I see it.
So facility, and, I mean,
Repair.
invasives are not facility.
Well, it's grounds, fields, and building expenses, so facility is any
Okay,
property.
okay. As long as it's in there somewhere. And you know how much it is.
Yes.
Okay, that takes us through operating.
Because Lori, we had talked about moving the beautification money into the invasives and trees. But we don't know what
We're kind of
beautification
thinking
is.
about them as we're planning it all one big
Together.
pot, but how Jen has to budget for them.
Right.
I don't know how specific they are.
The other piece, just again in combining some stuff, so the small tools and the waste containers got moved into facility maintenance materials, just because again, it was
That's it.
smaller lines. And then I did add in a little bit of money there for some trail maintenance days, so that we can provide materials and things, so for like Selleck's Woods or the Land Trust, whatever, if we need to, at least we can provide the materials that they need to do that, so I put some money in there for that.
Yeah, like the Friends of Woodland Park.
Yeah, we were
Sometimes
talking,
we'll come and do a neighborhood work day and we provide them with the chips.
right, so if there are other things that they need in order to do that, we felt we should be providing them some assistance with that, if they're giving us their blood, sweat, and tears. So I put in 2,000, thought was about 1,000 for each day.
Okay. Any more questions or discussion on the operating budget? Okay. All right, so then we need to move over to the capital budget. As I was mentioning earlier, if you look at 24-25, which is the fiscal year we're in, we were allocated a whopping $276,100. $120,000 of which was for a new truck. So when you take that out,
Magnify.
it was next to nothing. It was basically next to nothing this year. So, I mean, I can't remember a time when it was that low in all the years we've done
And
this.
this presentation again with like the out years, that's like, those are for planning purposes only, like the only
Yes.
approval
Yes.
is the 25.
Yes, and Jen, I wanted to make sure that this part was where it is now, not the request, because it didn't seem to match.
So,
Because see, it says 2025, 26 department request, and then the next line of the 6-year chart is 2025, 26, but the numbers aren't the same.
what do you mean they aren't? I tried to make them. There are some things that we were adding.
No, like, this is the
So
same
you're
year,
saying like
this
the
year and this
7,000
year.
should
Right,
be
the
in-
same year,
Right.
but the numbers aren't the same.
Well, these
Here's
were
the-
numbers,
Here's a so I'm saying this is what we had in
what was in
last year.
last year saying for 25, 26
Yes.
is what's in the
Right,
25,
that's what I'm
26
saying.
column.
Right.
And then 25, 26 is what we would be requesting.
Right, so the second 25, 26 was how the column appeared a year ago when it was our 6-year forecast, part of our 6-year forecast.
Yes, except,
Could I?
let me just finish. So, like for, when you look on the back or the second page, there was a replacement loader. It was in for $100,000. So I've now gotten the pricing and they're saying 107.7 with the different attachments. And Jen said, I thought she would want to keep it as what was
It
currently in the
was.
budget, and then our thing, and she said, no, I'm just gonna make a match anyway.
Oh.
So I made a match. So that's why it
So now
says
they're the same.
107.7,
What determines if something is capital or?
$5,000 or more and 2 years lifespan or
Okay.
more.
And so for the two dredging projects, what
Yes.
what does that do for us? Like what, how did, for me as a town resident, how is my life better when the pond is dredged? And that's, because I don't really know what it means to dredge a pond, but I've seen the pond, so.
Well, one doesn't have water in it, but that's because it's really just a, it's more of a retention pond, really. Tilly, right, so Tilly is fed just from catch basins.
Okay,
That's what fills it. That's why we haven't had any rain, so there's no water in the pond, or very little. So what it will do is obviously it will help keep that, and then we have cherry lawn. It keeps them healthier. What happens is all the stuff, the leaves, the trees, the tree branch, all that kind of stuff gets in there and it ends up decaying. And it basically kind of can suck the oxygen out. So that's why you get algae, and you get, like, when we have it at Tilly, we get the blue-green algae. And, oh, I did put in, by the way, some of the treatments for the two ponds is in the regular operating budget, in case we need them. And then, so it will create them and make them healthier, and hopefully then we don't actually need the treatments. But, over several years, I think certainly with cherry lawn, that one gets dredged out. And now we have the fountain in there. I think that one will probably do much better, and will be good for a number of years, but I don't know. I can't.
so what are the two dredging ones here?
So one is cherry lawn, and the other one is Tilly.
But didn't you say we just did cherry?
No,
No.
we
Oh.
put an aerator in Chile.
Okay. Okay.
Wait, in Tilly?
In Chile.
In Chile. I don't even know.
Put an aerator in there.
That was the.
And does the aerator work? Does that?
The aerators
It's helped.
is helping, and, it should keep, because it keeps the, number one, it keeps the water moving and
Oxygenated.
circulating, and it keeps it oxygenated. Because what ends up happening is
The algae
I don't
comes
know,
up to the
but-
top.
when the stuff comes in and it decomposes and then it releases
Anaerobic.
all the, it's like the whole ecosystem thing that,
Is this the kind of thing, like, if you had this, I mean, this is really a question for all of you, because it's like, if you had this pond in your yard, you'd be dredging it because, like, it's a good use of money? Or,
Yes.
and I'm-
Yes.
So we have a pond that we own with other neighbors, and we've had to dredge it several years. It's just part of your maintenance and health of your property.
right, because otherwise, what's gonna happen is they're gonna end up filling in, and then they just become like
Muck.
marshes and muck and wetland, and then you lose the pond.
And then you get your frays.
So-
and-
So it's kind of that, part of that ecosystem issue. The one concern that I do have with this, especially with the ponds, we have in here, I was asked to put the weed, meadow, and trail in here for this year, so that is in here. And then we're
By
also,
first selectman.
yes, the first selectman asked that we put that in, and then also pear tree. And we would need to do that, we're looking to, and again, we'll give an update on that shortly, but that would have to be in this budget item because it's going out to bid. So we have two major projects that would be going on. And then we're gonna start with, I mean, again, it just goes back to bandwidth of staff, of how do we accomplish it. It's one thing to have some of these items on here that are equipment, and we can bid them out, and then you place the order, and it's not a lot of extra work. But certainly, I think to do both ponds at the same time would be a lot. The reasons for question marks and the highlights are things that either we, and/or that we need to talk about them, or also we're waiting on prices. If there's a question mark, it's because I don't have a price.
But once the capital is allocated, that you don't lose at the end of the year. So then we have it. So depending on the timing of the projects.
We don't? I thought we, okay.
I don't think so, no.
But I'm not, so, but for the boat ramp, that's in here, is it 26, 27? Or
Well,
you're talking about potentially would come
it
in as
was
a
26, 27, but now because we need to get it out for permit, so we're looking at going to P and Z January, hopefully have approvals in February, go out to bid, which means the work is, we're thinking to start that in the fall,
Mhm.
right, was the thought.
Well, again, it's all
If- again,
subject
if it
to
all
many,
gets-
many approvals,
Right.
but.
But if that were to happen, so now we're in this fiscal
Yeah,
year.
okay.
Because then I had even said,
Got
well,
it.
should it be split if it gets between the two? And they said, nope, put it in
Okay.
this year.
So I have questions on that, but I wanna hold, I
Yeah.
mean, I think I didn't look at that thing that you sent me yet, so
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
I'm not gonna ask anything on that.
yeah, I checked, because when it's about an hour. It's quite a long presentation, and it's pretty
Yeah.
technical.
But,
But
so,
yeah, but the selectmen did direct us some months ago, and approved the money to pay Weston and Sampson to get the bid package ready
Right.
to go,
So we're talking fall of '25.
at best. At best.
Okay.
to start that, and then hopefully Weed is in a similar
But
timeframe, you know, or that might be, maybe that's in the spring, I don't know. But again, all the stuff will be kind of happening at the same time, because again, there's stuff that has to happen leading up to projects.
now, practically speaking, these projects would probably be bonded.
Right,
So-
right, it would be.
So the Board of Finance would handle the funding that way, as
Right.
opposed to taxing for
Mhm.
the whole amount in 1 year.
Right.
It would just be the incremental bonding expense.
And this sustainability, this 36,000, that's what we were talking about.
That's what I was talking about
Yep.
earlier, yep.
And if for whatever reason you didn't get support for this by Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen, could you still try to figure it out as best you could?
Mm.
The flooding, you
No.
mean?
No.
No,
This was about
sustainability
like,
thing.
Cost
The-
recovery around.
It would be,
I mean,
it would be kind of difficult to do, plus part of the whole thing is having this tool, which is the whole computer program thing that they do, you know, so that you can have the information in the day. Otherwise, how do we sit there and track? It, like that part would be very difficult. I don't know how we would do that. One of the things in here, and just, you'll see priority in here. I tried my best to figure out these numbers, and it's based on a matrix
Yes.
that is given to us by finance, so it has to do with, I don't know, honestly, I didn't particularly care for it. It didn't, one side of it doesn't make sense to me. So like I put in here, accessible mats for the beaches.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what are
And-
those?
And it comes in, the way I interpret it, as a 3. I think it's higher, I think it would be because it wouldn't technically be a mandate by state, federal, you know, but I think it's the right thing to do.
What
so to
are
me, it would be
they?
one.
They're
So-
mats that you
so-
put down so people can get down in wheelchairs?
Get to the water, yeah, so
You roll
they're
them over the
Moby
sand.
mats, so they
Yeah.
go down over the sand. And actually, I was a little bit horrified when I was going to Weed, because I wanted to measure so I could get the pricing. And obviously, if we get funding, I will have them come out and actually, like, go with me so we make sure everything's good. But if you realize, there's no way to get from that building onto the sand. There's one little spot over by the dunes that, like, if you were to come around, so I'm like, well, I'd have to do like a 6-foot piece out this way and then take it down.
You
And
mean you're saying there's no ramp
There's
off of
no
the
ramp,
platform on the
But
There's
isn't,
no-
that's not a big deal, to just make a ramp?
But I'm just
Well,
saying, and just so you know, I mean, I think I mentioned this before, that the town is, there's an access audit that is in process.
Right.
And I know they were there, and I just thought, wow, because I hadn't noticed, like, that part hadn't
Right.
really stuck out to me until I went to do that. Pear tree is a little bit easier, and it's kind of a straight shot that I can take right off the walkway. I did also measure it, you basically go like typically like 10 feet down below the high tide line. But I did also add extra onto both of them to try to get over some of the rocks, to try to get us deeper in. I did send pictures, so they think they do think we could do that, because otherwise sometimes, you know, it might not work, because you have to like lag it in. But, so I did include that as part of the cost, so that it will get further in. So yeah, so I don't know how, like, some of that part
Yeah, so
doesn't work, and I have
it's
to look.
interesting that they put a 3 in for
Well,
that.
I
where-
This
did,
is
but
the matrix.
it's the
Remember?
matrix.
This is the matrix, right?
Can we have that, a copy of that in front of us for next?
Yeah, I actually made copies,
Okay.
but I can, but yeah, I'll send it out to everybody.
Oh, okay, you got it. So now you can pass around?
But if you want to,
Yeah. So it's not us just saying, we think this is a 1, we think this is a 2. It's
No, I
using-
remember that.
You remember this, Amy?
And we used it when we put our priorities.
right, so,
Yeah, we have to.
so again, I kind of took a first stab at them. But some of the stuff didn't really make too much sense. I do want to also share one of the other prices that we're getting, because I know it came up on the, I think it was, for at Tilly to fix in front of the hut, the
The uneven pavement.
flagstone and everything,
Right.
whatever, so we're getting pricing for that, and, I mean, hopefully that's not too much, and we can just do that, but just so you know, that was one of the things that were, because I saw the hut, the roof on the hut. So we're waiting on, again, we have the traffic study, and that's what I put in there about the special appropriation. Whether or not we want to dredge the pond, I'm waiting on pricing for that. At Cherry Lawn, McGuan, we talked about needing to replace that railing on the accessible ramp, waiting on that price. Again, waiting on a price for Tilly, dredging that pond. We kept in stripping the paddle court paint, so we're doing one of those each year. And we'll need to do that through fiscal year '28. One of the questions is the gatehouse at Weed. I know, I think it had been in there in the past and it's not in good condition. So do we want to put that in? If so, I'm gonna have to make sure I get a price on that. But that was one of the things, I mean, I don't know how much longer it's
pretty
gonna
rough
last.
shape. I think that we've had that in there for 2, if not 3 cycles, and it keeps getting cut, but it's in rough shape.
Again, I put in the meadow and trail. And then there was also the repair of the tennis wall and court at Weed. Did we want to move forward? Because there seemed to be a little bit of thought, like, maybe with everything else going on, maybe that gets pushed further out. We can, again, that's something to keep in mind, that they can be pushed out to other years if we think it's something we still want to do, but maybe that's, because of other things, that's not the priority. We also put in here, under pear tree, the entrance exit gates. If you look at them, they're in really bad shape. So it's just to replace those. Small capital, that could be for little things, that pieces of equipment and stuff like that that come up.
The repurpose of the concession, we're gonna push that out to 27, 28? You couldn't do that sooner?
Well, that's 1 year out.
Yeah, but the work wouldn't actually start until the season of 27, right? That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I think this gets back to Jen and her staff only having,
Okay.
I think that's something that next year, like when we do budget next year, we could revisit it, and if it's something we could move up a year or something, we could do that. It's just,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is gonna be if these other 2 get funded. what are we gonna be able to handle and get done? So I think if we did that, then if that's moving along or it's done, or we think we're gonna be, maybe that is something we look to move up or.
Yeah, okay. It just sits there kind of rotting away, nothing, could be used. But I understand.
So again, we put in the loader, that had been in there. There was this dump truck, we pushed that out, put in for the mats. Again, a log grapple, that would go on, be for the skid steer and the loader. Again, that helps us after the storms and stuff, when we're picking up all the trees that we, that we need to maintain
Replant.
and deal with. Financial sustainability strategy, replacement of a lift gate, that's one, it's rotted out, and we need to put that onto a new truck, so that's I got that to be a 1. But other than that, so, and again, this is stuff where if you all think that there are certain things that we should move up or move out, or yes, we should definitely do it, or now's not the time, that's all feedback that's gonna go in. I'll save that for my report.
Thoughts? Look at this, there's really nothing new. This is stuff we've been talking about
A lot
All
of
of
it, we've
it.
just been kicking it down the
for
road.
a long time, and they just keep getting kicked down the road. It's really no, what I would call new initiatives, no new, it's not, looking at, master plans, the different parks and saying, now let's implement this piece or that piece. It's really the first things we've tackled, going back 3-5 years at this point, trying to bring over the finish line. The dredging, how long have we been talking about dredging the Cherry Lawn Pond? And things like that, replacing the weed beach.
Well, the parking lot at Bad Tree, we've
Yeah,
been talking about forever, it's with the flooding issues down there.
Yep, so,
So Lori, it's 9:45.
yes, I'm aware.
And we've all had a cover, we've all been busy. Can we move this along a little bit, or do we need to?
We're not voting.
have Okay.
It's just how much more discussion and
Just
questions
discussion.
people have.
Let's,
Okay, if everybody's good, then we'll move it on.
thank you.
My name's Matt Simon, I'm a resident. Is there a moment to ask a question about revenue for paddle courts?
That would have been during public comment, you could have made a statement.
Oh, did I miss that?
I didn't do it halfway, honestly.
Sorry,
This program.
I've been sitting here for 3 hours.
I'd like to get through what we gotta get through.
Can't we just give him a time limit?
Say 2 minutes.
I mean, he's been here for 2 hours.
You just wanna
I'm
make,
fast. I'm
you
quick.
just wanna make a statement, or?
2 minutes?
I mean, we're not,
There's a group
public
of us.
comment, there's no discussion, just so
No,
you're
just
completely
for
clear.
informational purposes, there's a group of us that play a paddle quite a bit down at Wheat Beach. And,
Can
you
I
know,
just ask, for the record, we need your name and address.
Sure, Matt Simon, Fairfield Avenue, Darien. And some of us play just on weekly reservations for the season. And then there's a group of us, a bunch of us that play competitively on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And we have a lot of people who would like to play more on the weekend mornings. So just want to figure out the best way to try and see how we can make that happen. So that's it.
Paddle or pickleball?
Paddle. And the opportunity that we have is for like January through March. And the way we do it, it's a 2-semester thing. So the first semester is finishing up in December, and then the second semester we get going, and we want to try to see if there's an opportunity to expand the footprint a little bit and add 4 courts on a Saturday or Sunday morning.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. 26.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll see you.
alrighty,
See you back.
we need to vote on next year's meeting schedule, because we have to get that locked up.
Yep.
proposed, it was in the packet, staying third Wednesday of the month at 7:30. As usual, the only deviations are with the, during, when school's on vacation,
Schools.
we historically move them off, because, our members who have school-age children or who work for the school systems, maybe on vacation that week, so. Other than that, I think they stayed and going, always looking way ahead to the holidays. I just always know kind of when the holidays are for people's reference, because we've had times when, like, the Wednesday's the night before Thanksgiving, and we didn't want to do that, but I think we're all right with that next year. So if everybody is good with this, we can just have a motion. If we get into a problem, because
Yeah.
Chip wants to talk about it. Yes, everybody's happy, Amy, Ed, all in favor? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Tamara will do that, and then she reserves the room for us. Okay, cool. The next is for our next meeting, because we set the meeting schedule a year in advance. The 18th is a bad night for me. It's just, I really have something that night I have to be. So, would like to see if we can find a way to move that. Jen and I talked about the possibility of moving it a week earlier, given that she's under some pressure to get the budget in.
So just looking at dates, so we're talking
But we could
about-
also just shift the day to the 17th or the 19th and keep it the same week. Terry,
I'll miss if it's that week of the 18th, regardless, but the week
Okay.
earlier is fine for me.
okay. So, does the 11th work? Is anybody that's in?
December 11th?
Yes, is there anybody here that doesn't work for?
I'm sorry, what day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday, Janet?
That won't work for me, I have like holiday concerts, but that's kind of like the case for that whole week, so
So
if
that's not a
that's
good
the
week for
week,
you.
yeah, I wouldn't go by me, but I could make the 17th work, but,
Okay. How does just moving it one day?
11th works. That works for, 11th works for me.
But it doesn't work for Janet. Terry said he may be out of town that week.
On the 11th? Oh, that
Yes,
week.
that whole week. If we just moved one day earlier to Tuesday, the 17th, would that work for people?
Yes.
I
would
think I
have to work.
have land trust that night. It's my first meeting. I can't remember, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my calendar.
they are usually on Tuesdays.
But I don't have to come to the meeting necessarily. They are on Tuesday, right? Third Tuesday of the,
Yeah, it hasn't changed, but
Yeah.
that was the,
so.
Can we vote to give you discretion to schedule it once you get everyone's
Mm.
attendance? Because you've got Chris as well, that you've got to check in on.
Terry.
Yeah, Terry said the week,
You need a 5, right? You don't
yeah,
need-
Terry said that week, the week of the 16th, he's good. He knows he will not be
Yeah.
out of town. He said the week of either the 3rd or the 11th, one of those weeks, he definitely will be away, and I know. Because he's missed, he would, he'd like to attend, but, it's always a trade-off. But you said the 17th would work for you, Janet?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Jim. Okay, so you might have a conflict, you
And
know,
I've got a
time.
conflict, but
Oh, you have a conflict on the 17th as well?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so that- we
Europe.
missed this
I'm
one.
in Europe that week, so I'm.
Oh, okay. So you weren't gonna be here anyway?
Correct, no, that's what I said,
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't, I'm not gonna be here that week,
So you were
yes,
gonna be in,
yes.
okay.
So let's check with Terry. Oh,
Terry said the 17th he can do.
okay.
Okay.
And then if we can get Chris, point to the empty seat.
Okay. Okay,
There's his purse.
okay. So do we wanna just go with the 17th and said we lose you either way?
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, okay, so we need a motion. Jim, Mary Louise, all in favor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Tamara has to find us a room.
I think I asked her about that, it might be the auditorium,
Okay.
or they'd have to go virtual, I think.
Okay,
I think that was it. We were looking at a couple different dates, but we'll double check.
okay. And, we could do that meeting virtual and just keep it solely to a budget discussion, just kinda keep it crisp for the month. Just because I know it's a really tough time of year. I know with Christmas concerts and parties and family coming and going, and maybe we just keep the agenda really based on just the fee discussion and the budget,
Right, just those two things.
nothing else. Yep,
Virtual's helpful too.
And go virtual. If we did virtual, we could possibly adjust the time. Would that help you, Amy? I'm gonna check everybody else, but,
I'm looking up the land trust right now to
Okay.
see, but, it sounds like everybody else can be there, so. Second Tuesday, not the third,
oh, so you're fine then.
should be.
Okay, so why don't we just go with Tuesday, the 17th at 7:30 and find a room, get the budget done. Happy New Year.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you all for that accommodation.
Yeah.
Since I really need to be here. I want to stay married.
I gotta say, after all of these years, I think it's the first time we've ever asked for that, so,
Yeah, it's probably.
all
right.
these years.
Well, I could get coverage, but with the budget, I feel as the chair.
Yeah, no, it's important for you.
Okay, let's roar through. We were going to talk about next steps on pickleball. People have the energy? Okay, Jim?
Yep, yeah, I think what we're gonna do is, obviously, we need to get a lot of data that we're gonna need to support how we're going to address pickleball for the next season. Jen is going to be pulling together some of that data and looking at surrounding towns, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't wanna speak for you, but I know you're gonna pull together a report that you'd be able to possibly get back to us in January, if not February, depending on, your workload.
My guess right now is, the way I'm feeling at the moment, probably February. But yeah, and I think if there are certain things, if there's any certain piece of data that people want in particular, let me know so that we can try to pull that together. But we can look at some of the surrounding communities. We were talking about looking at just kind of the usage, where we were at, let's say last year, where we were at this 2 years ago, whatever we just finished. And we have to look at it because we can't just go by, say, reservations, because like I said, we've changed sort of what has, we kind of have to look at it as percentages of what's used versus, because our availability has changed.
Right.
So it wouldn't be
Like
fair to just say it's, well, our revenue's gone down and it's because we had this many less times, but there wasn't the opportunity to make reservations. So we'll pull that together, but if anybody has any specific stuff that you would want us to look for, let me know. And
Yeah.
or go
Also
through Jim.
lessons. just
Yeah, we'll look
information
at
on our
lessons, we'll look at all of that.
Reservations.
And I'd say whatever data Jim has for tennis, that would be helpful too, so we can have apples to apples.
Do we track our tennis usage or just the lessons?
We do some block reservations for that, but that's it.
But that's it.
So we don't have the same apples to apples for reservation wise, but.
Aren't we adding that though?
I think we
It
should
won't
talk
help
about
us
that.
with the past, but.
Right. I think we
Right,
should talk
that's what
about
we were
that
saying, we should talk about
Right.
adding that.
And how that could work.
And if there are any throughput measures, I'm just throwing that out, like at what point would you consider adding another pickleball court? It's almost like adding another room, running a business or something.
Well, that's what we're trying to get to.
Right, but if they're national throughput measures, or if other communities have, like at what is the tipping point that they decide to, but it would be like a
Right.
throughput measure, like 100 people per, I'm just throwing this out, week. And if you get over that, then that might be an indication you need to look at
Right, and I'll
adding
reach back
another
out when I
pickleball
was,
court or something.
yeah, when I was at NRPA, I was
Yeah.
talking with the USA Pickleball people as well as
Mhm.
USTA and trying to get that, and I've reached out to him and he hasn't gotten back to me, so he's one,
Yeah,
I dealt with him once before on something and had to keep,
yeah.
pinging
That would
him,
be really-
so.
Really
Okay.
helpful.
And I'm sure they probably have some
Mhm.
sort of standards on that
Okay.
kind of stuff, so I can, I'll
Mhm.
look for that.
I think it'd also be interesting to understand kind of the time, the surge, the popularity
The
surges,
surges.
yeah. Time surges.
I know that you had met with the staff and John about that software.
Yes.
And he indicated he was very interested in that, but that probably wouldn't be till,
Well, I have passed the information along, so yeah, we did that whole, the geo fencing, all that stuff, which would be
Yeah.
super useful for this especially. So we did have a demo, I can't even remember if it was this week or last week. And John sat in on it, he was very interested, so it must have been last week. So I've gotten the pricing and different options. They do have some options, but obviously there are processes that we have to go through. So I don't know, I've given that to Jen. I think that was just yesterday.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're looking to maybe do that as a one-off and start that beforehand, before budget, or try to put that in as a budget thing.
Okay.
It would be kind of a town-wide thing, and it came in real handy. I think there was a lot of thoughts of different applications that people
Right.
could use
Well,
throughout
we could
town.
also be using it for the beaches and all
Exactly.
sorts of things and trying to see,
Parks.
when is the beach
And
ever
we
used?
can see all the usage and the peak times and
And
all that.
especially as we start having, with, again, the increase in residencies and, understanding peak parking issues and all of that, it would be really helpful. I could see it being really helpful for Great Island, lots of applications.
And you can even see like where people are coming from. So even if you, even like direction on the road, so you'd be able to see, if we look at Cherry Lawn, are they coming from this direction or this direction, or how they come, or, I mean, you can even tell where they go before and after, which is a little scary, but yeah, no, it would, I think for us, it would be really, really helpful.
Really, yeah, especially as we've having
And we can
just
track.
increasing concerns about congestions in the park, that we're observing. Okay. Good. Jen, your report, why don't we do it? with
I will
the-
try to do it
with
super
the
quick.
split.
So just to go back, we've kind of talked about Lee Beach. Pear Tree, again, we're trying to get that set with, to get onto P and Z in January, with hopefully a decision by end of February. Playground, so Baker, everything has been ordered. Everything is lined up for the walkway, for the matting, so basically we're just on hold until the equipment arrives. It'll be going to the installer. I'm anticipating probably, I think, January, February timeframe, so once we hear from them, we'll coordinate getting that installed. Holohan backstop, bid opening is tomorrow, so hopefully I have enough money, and we can get that done, so the plan would be, we would do that in the spring before we open up. I think I put that it had to be done by mid-March, because they usually start April 1st. Just
Jen, on
really,
the backstop,
Yep.
does that also include dugouts or just
Yes.
the backstop?
nope, it's the
Dugouts,
backstop and the
And the
two
dugouts,
wings.
right.
So again, you have in there our numbers for fall and winter program. Registration was up. Paddle court usage seemed to be down, but as I mentioned, it's picking up now that the weather's getting colder. The thing that helps add to everything is, that was listed in here, is Cassie is going to be out on maternity leave. Actually, we were thinking March, it looks like maybe more at the end of April, last week or so of April through, so she's been trying to get things done in advance, and, try to line things up, so that's part of why we're stressed. We're also assisting the youth commission right now, being down a little bit, a little short-staffed, as well as our front office. One of our part-time people is not there anymore. So we have a vacancy, so we're trying to fill that as well. So all of this is going on while we're trying to do everything else. So just,
Is Tara free?
please bear with us.
Did you talk to Tara Cochran?
We have not yet at this point, but we may tap her again. But yeah, so there's a lot going on. Tree lighting is December 1st, so it's a Sunday after. We're working with the Darien Sports Shop on that, 4:30 to 5:30, and obviously you all got the note to help us at Old Fashioned Holiday, hopefully. That's gonna be December 7th.
It's really fun if you haven't signed up.
It's so fun, yeah.
It's tons of
So hopefully that'll be good. Obviously, we're not our wish lanterns unless we get a real ton of water. They won't be floated. We'll line the wall with them, which might be nice because people can then take them because I think some were, from what I was told, some people were a little bummed that they decorated them, but then they put them in the water and they couldn't get them back, so.
Well, there's
you know,
no water anyway,
So,
so.
no, so that's why I said, so now it might be better, because we're gonna line the wall with them.
It was really pretty floating, but the thing is, we didn't, till it was dark, and then most
Right.
people, because it was an earlier event, people were gone.
Right, and
didn't
we
see it.
actually pushed it back an hour,
Yeah.
so that it would be better this year, and now we have no water. We also will not be having a fire pit, because we cannot have a fire, so we won't be having any of that, so, but we are
It'll be a
having.
little different.
But we
That's
have
all.
added some vendors, so we're making like a holiday craft fair, so people can come and, I think we have 14 vendors lined up right now, so people can do some of their holiday shopping and should be fun.
I put the word out to high school clubs.
Okay,
Because they
great.
can earn some extra credits.
Awesome.
For volunteering, so. we'll see
Thank
what
you.
kind of-
And Jim, it's really nice of you to be Santa. I thought that was really generous.
I did it actually 40 years ago for Kids
Well, there you go.
Department Store.
Oh, really?
I went to
Make sure your
Gimbel's Department
grandchildren
Store
don't go.
Santa Claus 40 years ago.
On 34th Street? Oh, we're,
In 34th Street 40 years ago, yeah. And then Yonkers for 2
That's
years.
so great. Good for
And I
you.
look just like this. I was a pretty crappy looking Santa, but I sat down the whole time and just,
Nobody knew the difference.
nobody knew.
So just a couple things for maintenance to, as I said, we're doing a lot of leaf cleanup. But one of the things I want to point out is that staff have gone around and they've recut and sodded the baseball fields. So they've done a really, really nice job. If you take a look back here on Holohan, it's come along nicely.
The Land Trust is doing an initiative to leave the leaves. You've probably seen a lot of signs up, right, leave the leaves. So if we can blow them just into the sides and.
We do what we
underneath
can, but then we
the
get
trees.
complaints from a lot of the neighbors because the leaves then blow out and onto their property,
Right,
so.
there's that too.
So we get, it's a.
But they're very valuable for the nutrition of the.
And then I just want to also share, Great Island, staff have been spending some time up there. We were asked to help out. So we've
We're doing a
ground,
lot.
we've ground a whole lot of stumps.
Yeah.
35.
35, I heard.
Yes, and we also helped clean up the sand pit and the track and did a lot of leaf collection up there as well.
Is there an interdepartmental transfer for that? Like, how does that? So I don't know if you're tracking it, but it would just.
We are tracking it.
Yeah, I mean, it would just.
Yeah.
No, I made sure, I said,
Yep.
make sure you
Fine.
keep track
Yep.
of everything that
Yep.
we're doing up
Yeah,
there.
especially
but-
if it gets to, use regular hours there and then we have to use overtime hours
Exactly.
elsewhere.
Exactly, and I think it's also been made clear, like, we'll do it when we can, if we can help, so they have not really deferred stuff that they should have been doing for us to do that. Yes, we are keeping
Watching
track
it
of it.
carefully.
And
And
did they
then-
take the flags down?
We did take the flags down,
All 100 and,
whatever of
Whatever.
them. And actually I have to find out, because we haven't had payroll since then, of how I charge that to the other
to beautification.
to beautification. And then just obviously, we're preparing for the winter season, we've done plows and all that, we're making sure everything's good to go. And we have, our upcoming events, so everything in a nutshell.
Everything in a nutshell. Okay, any
So
questions
now
for
you have to
Jen?
be quick.
Because I know everyone's gonna, I will be very quick. We really been spending a lot of time on Great Island. Yeah, a lot of time on Great Island. The first survey results came in, we had just under 2,400 respondents. A lot of it, there were 200, it was an Excel spreadsheet, 205 pages of community comments. I think there's a lot of good information in there for us and people have, about the parks in general, things people are looking for. So I want to make sure I can get that information out to you guys as well. I gotta clear that with Monica, but I think I should be able to. But it probably took me 4 to 5 hours to read through it all, but, even if you do the speed read. But one thing that came out, there's a lot of interest in the community pool that's coming up again. So I think there are gonna be different things that may end up manifesting themselves in different ways. So I wouldn't urge you to keep close to the process as much as you can, either watch the meetings, read, minutes, the minutes are pretty Spartan. But somehow I just feel that we've had, the head of F&B RTM committee has gotten up and head of the RTM and say, we shouldn't be just talking about this in a vacuum, but really coordinating with what we offer in the parks and all the towns. So I think we're all gonna be tangentially involved,
Mhm.
in what comes out of this. The second survey is now out, it's a drill down from the first. If you haven't taken it, please do so. It's really important we get everybody's community, it takes 10 minutes or so, you can go on the website, which is greatisland.darien.ct.gov.
When's it due?
I
December
think the
4th.
Wednesday after Thanksgiving. But I encourage you to get your personal input in there. Coastal Commission actually has been spending quite a time also talking about Great Island in terms of making recommendations to the Great Island Advisory Committee in terms of what they would like to see happen on and around the island, having specifically more due to both waterfront activities and water quality. So that's where they've had a lot of the focus of their efforts.
It's greatisland.darien.
CT, then
CT.
.gov. And attended OPC last month. There wasn't anything real specific to the parks of that one, and then we have another meeting this Thursday. I think that's it. Okay.
Lori, it would be interesting with you being on Great Island and this as well, when we kick off the updating the master parks plan. I mean, to, see both sides of that and maybe have someone from Reed, Hildebrand
Yeah.
come in at some point and, when the survey results come out and the plan is actually, starting to be written and approved. I'm assuming that'll be, maybe those will coordinate about the same time, something.
Well, we have to start in
So it's
27.
Yeah, we have to have
Calendar
it approved by the
27.
end of 27 and then back up.
Yeah, so we're a bit
27.
from that now.
Yeah.
We're a bit away.
But it might parallel with some things once the survey results come in from Great Island and things start ruminating and decisions made just to, that's all, I think it's great because you'll be able to see both sides.
Yeah.
But to have them come in and once,
Yeah,
you
whether,
know,
I don't know specifically we can do that because they have
Yeah.
a pretty specific contract in terms
Yeah.
of what they do, but certainly, I had a conversation with Becca Sturgis on Saturday when we were up at Great Island for the
Yeah.
day, and, she's looked
Yeah.
at the master plan, and we talked about how even the current master plan didn't envision 600 new apartments.
yeah,
And sort of
Yeah.
how all these pieces really fit together in town, so you're right,
Yeah.
there's a lot of,
just to make it
Getting together,
transparent
we
so
have-
both
we have to
sides,
look at.
especially their side, knows what's going on from the parks
Yeah.
side and what's going on in town, yeah. And what we're deciding to do or
Right.
what's recommended, yeah. So you're not duplicating.
I mean, one thing that keeps coming up, of course, is that effectively the Pear Tree parking lot has become the parking for Great Island.
Yeah.
We keep reminding them that that's an
And-
active park that people park at.
And the
go
roads
to their
surrounding there, they're parking in front of people's houses on
Yeah.
Harbor and,
Yep.
yeah.
That's
Mhm.
legal. Harbor's legal.
Harbor's legal.
It's legal
Oh,
out there.
well, I'm sure they're not happy about it, but anyway, it's 10:12, but, yeah,
Okay,
Because it's public.
Yeah, it's a public road.
Yeah.
yeah.
motion?
Yes.
Mary Louise,
Yes.
Amy,
Go.
everybody.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Okay.